Divyadarshini, I have a question for you. Are you
Yeah.
in any way related to Rahul Suresh? Or do you know who Rahul
So,
Suresh is?
no,
Okay, take care.
okay, because just because of the Suresh, or
Yeah, most probably, yeah.
no, that's my dad.
As Rahul Suresh was actually in the KTR campus in my batch. He
Okay. No, I'm
was,
not related to him.
yeah.
Guys, if you have any questions, please at least you can DM me or ask personally or unmute and ask. Go ahead.
But try not to adopt means that go via text. Just unmute and just ask.
I don't know. Still, they are super hesitant and
Yeah, why are you so super
giving
hesitant
the
in
typical
speaking?
classroom vibes.
Huh.
This is how our classes will be actually. So,
Yeah, I remember. I was a very vocal person, so I used to be enough for the entire class. The teachers, they just used to get extra exhausted answering me. So generally, I would make it up for everyone. But why is everyone not speaking? Please speak up.
yeah, guys, we have to make them exhausted. Come on, ask questions.
What kind of app? I was actually late to join the class, like the first session, because we
Uh,
want and stuff like that. So then I was like, what are we gonna do in this session? Like, I know we're gonna create an app. Like, what kind of app?
you guys will decide that basically. I would generally like to go over the basics of, I mean, the basic building blocks of what an app is. Generally, I mean, for any app that you create, there would be certain elements in the app that would be aligned vertically. Some elements would be aligned horizontally. There would be an app bar. There would be, let's say, a slider or something. There would be an API call that would be happening. You would be fetching data from that API call, storing that data, interacting with that data, right? So all of those things, these are like the building blocks of any app. You create any app, you create adhere to any sophisticated use case, as sophisticated as it sounds. But because these you know about these building blocks, you'll be able to build any app, any use case, whatever feature you want. So we'll be just going over those building blocks and seeing how we can, achieve all of that functionality using Flutter and how easy it is.
Okay, I have some prior experience with Flutter. I completed a course and stuff, so I know like the basic. The problem is like, will you be teaching the SQL part kind of thing, like the provider
Nope,
a lot of
nope,
topics?
nope. We
Okay,
won't be
okay,
going into. It is a
okay,
very beginner-friendly talk
okay, okay,
workshop, so we won't be going into detail.
okay.
Cool, but I would love to know about your experience. Are you from SRM VDP or are you from not from
VDP,
SRM
VDP.
VDP? Are you
I'm
from
from
SRM
SR.
VDP? Which
Yeah, yeah,
year?
yeah. I'm in my final year, fourth year.
Fourth year. Perfect. And you're from the computer science department as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How long have you been working with Flutter?
But actually, I first started back in 2019. I attended a workshop, but back then I didn't understand anything. Like I just
Okay.
attended the. Then, like this year, actually, I did not do anything meaningful in 2020. But this year, I kind of started things again. So I just attended a course from Udemy for Flutter. So I kind of know like to create
Whose
an app
course
kind
was
of
it?
thing. The U, uh, Angela U, what Angela U.
Acha, London App Brewery wala. Okay. Yeah, that is a good
Yeah, yeah,
course.
yeah, London, yeah, that one.
Hmm. Cool, cool. Have you made any projects or anything? Do you have like code hosted on GitHub or something that we would be able to
Um,
see?
okay, kind of like I don't have anything hosted on GitHub because I did not find anything
But
like
any
worth
apps that you
posting.
might have created that you would like to share with
Yeah,
us?
so basically there was this app that they wanted me for like some for some placement thing. So I kind
Okay.
of created the UI and everything. It was pretty easy to fix, but I got like
Uh,
literally lost. I got stormed by the SQL kind of thing. I kind of finished then, but it was like way after the given point, so I did not even do anything. I just left it. I got like very confused with the SQL kind of thing. I didn't know the lot of things in that. So that
Got it.
just I mean I know SQL separately, I know Flutter separately, but I didn't know how to like attach one with another, those kind of things. They asked at me either to do in Hive or SQLite. So SQLite was kind of easy since I kind of knew the SQL, the basics. I also
But
tried in
if you,
Hive.
I mean, if you know Hive, matlab like if you spend like an hour on Hive, Hive is much more easier than SQL.
Ah,
Very easy.
yeah, I heard, but like I didn't have enough time. Like I don't know, maybe it's like I couldn't do that. That's all. Like end of story for that.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, I mean, like, what are you planning for the future right now? What are you planning for your? Are you
Uh,
sitting for placements? Are you going for higher
yeah,
studies?
I'm planning for placements.
Cool, cool. Chalo, for best of luck. That's amazing. I mean, you put in an effort to learn Flutter on your own. That is also amazing.
Thank you.
See, was it so difficult? We had a normal conversation. It was not so difficult. I'm not an intimidating person. I would love for other people also to speak up and have a conversation. It is not rocket science, folks. You can just talk to me.
Ayush, I have few questions for you.
Yes, Akash, please.
So whenever we try to create a project on Flutter, uh,
Yeah,
the broader code plate, I saw the code, it got automatically generated for the main dot file.
yeah.
Will happen every time or
Every time you create a new Flutter project, that code it was generated right now, no, that will get auto
and
generated every time.
and the
Yeah,
list
that
of
will.
files will be automatically generated. No,
The entire Flutter project that we went through in the previous session, that entire thing will get generated for you whenever you create a new Flutter project, and then you can just
so
start editing those files.
okay. So in case if I want to know import any new package or something, so where should I go import anything? Like I want a new
So
element new.
no, we'll be doing that. We'll be doing that in this session.
Okay. And
We'll be adding dependencies,
okay.
importing them, using them. वो करेंगे. Please go on.
And next question is like what language I'll be using to design the app no, for the front end like the
That's the beauty of it. It's that only. You'll be writing
that
the front end also in that, and the logical and stateful aspect also in that.
in the sense like no or like for no in order to display a text no I should use the text tag
That,
or something.
yeah, no, it will be that. Everything will be written in
Everything will
that.
be in that.
May I add
You'll be
something?
seeing that.
Okay.
May I add
Yes,
something? Like
yes,
so
yes.
basically for like displaying and everything, you use some stuff called widgets kind of thing. That's
They are
basically
also
the
written in
front
that
end.
only.
Yeah, they are also that. It's pretty easy to be honest. Like you'll have,
Yep,
they'll give you all the documentation and stuff like that. Even if you have any doubt, just you'll just get the answer by a quick Google or something. It's very easy.
yep, that is true. Let's start at 2:40. I mean, I'm just waiting for any of the last folks who would like to join, and I'll also wait for you to speak up and ask some questions. Because I've given a lot of information in the first session. We would be doing some practical work, but I've given a lot of theoretical and a lot of information in the first session, and I would love for you to ask me questions. I mean, ask me questions that I can't answer, no? So please, please ask me a question that I can't answer.
Okay. Some of the participants no they have no difficulty in no running the app in their phone. Like how did you do that actually? No.
Oh, interesting. So basically, whenever you connect your app to your phone, so you
Okay.
can just go to the settings. Or my
USB
screen is not
debugging mode.
shared.
I
So,
have to
एक
turn on
minute.
my USB debugging mode. So
Can you please make me a host again so that I can share my screen?
yeah,
Again, 1 second. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so you can just go to your settings. Then you will have these like developer settings somewhere. I don't know in my phone कहाँ पे है वो.
I should tap that build number, few times, so that the developer.
हाँ. So basically, I think Which one do you tap?
And
This one. Yeah.
build number.
Build number. Basically, wherever your build number is written, go to about phone. Then there will be a build number written somewhere. Like I am on a OnePlus device, so it is like this. But there will be a build number written somewhere. Just keep on tapping it. Okay, and then in a few taps you will have unlocked developer settings. Okay,
Yeah,
and then just go to those developer settings. Let me quickly find where I have those settings on my phone.
just
I can just search for it
yeah.
probably. Cool. So I will just go to developer options. यहाँ पे there will be a lot of settings, but what we are concerned about is USB debugging.
Okay.
Just turn this on. Okay, once you turn this on, then you should automatically get a pop-up on your screen saying that do you
Yeah,
want to trust this
warning.
computer?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to trust this computer? Just click yes. And once you have clicked yes, it will just start trusting your computer and then you can just run the app. So as soon as you do that, na, Flutter on VS Code here, you will start seeing your phone.
Okay.
Okay. And if you don't see your phone, just restart VS Code once. Then it will be come again. Restart VS Code. If you don't see, restart your laptop, probably you will see it. Okay, it will get recognized and then it will be available as a device on which you can then do the debugging for the app.
Okay. It's like if I save a particular piece of code here, no, it will automatically, app gets reloaded automatically. Right?
Yep. So basically the command for that is flutter run. So if I do flutter run right now, like for flutter run, okay, just flutter run, nothing else, then it will whatever device is connected right now, either it is an emulator or a phone that you've connected, it will either ask you that on which device you want to run if you have multiple devices, and if you only have one device, it will just automatically run it if you want to run it via the terminal. Okay, if you don't want to run it via the terminal, if you want to run it via VS Code directly like I am doing right now,
Okay.
then I think you can just go to run and then यहाँ से होता है ना हाँ, you can either do start debugging or you can do run without debugging. Okay, and it will
Okay.
I generally do run without debugging if I am not debugging any bug or anything. Okay, because this is just faster. You just do run without debugging once you have selected your device and it will just launch it on your phone. Okay,
Yeah, got it.
yep, so उस तरह से you can run it. Cool. Any other questions? Please ask questions, please. So many people are here. Please ask questions. You can ask me about anything. No, don't have to compulsorily ask about Flutter or app development or coding. Just ask me anything about placements, about anything.
Now you might have questions. If you start placement, it go on. Actually, I got one question from someone saying that
Yeah.
when they give the Flutter Doctor, it's saying that the Android Studio is not installed. Though it is installed, it's like saying that Android Studio is not installed.
Yeah,
Will it
I
be
Can they?
can just go
for
with the VM?
Windows, right? The error is for Windows. Yeah, that's actually easy. If you just type something like Flutter space Android hyphen Studio space in double quotes, you just give the folder location of the Android Studio, it will be fine. I don't know why it's happened, but it happens like 50%, at least for me.
Yeah, it happened for someone else also. She asked me. So it's
It's pretty easy to fix. It's
okay.
basically it's like
Thank you.
Cool, perfect. Any other questions? How have your placements been going? Is there someone here who's already placed? Anyone? Matlab, you can just leave it in the chat also if you don't want to speak up. Yep, thank you for that. AKP. What's your name? I don't want to call you AKP.
it's Others K Praveer. So short, it's AKB.
So I can call you Adarsh, na?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Is there no one here who's placed Abhi? Or is there someone who's placed but he or she doesn't want to tell us?
No, it's kind of slow, so we have just started it. It's going slow.
Abhi to I think it's August, na? So
Huh.
August means there are like very few placements. Most of the placements
So
happen in
it's like
September,
one or two,
October.
and they are busy in the company, so they are not here, obviously.
Acha, acha. Hmm. Some people might have also gone for interviews today. Also, there might be placements happening.
Yeah, some TCS ninja is going on. Anyways, let's start or
We can start. Cool. Okay, fine. So, in the previous session, we went through this application, right? The boilerplate application that we have. And one thing that I usually do when we create a new Flutter project generally is that I control A and delete everything. Okay. Because let's go over each and everything from scratch. Okay. Because we need to understand each and every line of code for you to be able to write code on your own. Okay. So initially at the starting of all the files, we have all the imports that we need in order to write code for that file. So I know that in this file, I need the run app function, I need the stateless widget, the stateful widget, etc. etc. All of those things I need. So for in order to get those, I will have to import the material.dart file. So you can see that this, if you look at this template right here, I can maybe zoom in. Is it visible? Is it should be visible clearly right now? So if you look at this, so this is the import keyword that signifies that you're going to be importing something, importing a file. Then this is the package keyword that specifies that okay, from the package Flutter, import the file material.dart, right? So there would be a package Flutter, and inside that there would be a file material.dart that we are importing. Right now, my editor is telling me that you are not using this import anywhere because I've imported this, but I'm not using it anywhere. And that is sad. I mean, I want to be using it, right? So let's use it. Cool. So the first function that we'll be making, as I mentioned earlier previously, is void main. This is, I mean, the return type can be anything. It can sometimes be future of void also. So, but yeah, the main function, right? This is the main function. This is the central invocation point. This is the point of invocation for your Dart program. Any Dart program you write, the invocation point will always be the main function. And from there, you will be creating your entire application. Okay. So you have void main, then you have run app. As this is void main is a Dart function. Okay. It is common across all Dart projects, but run app is specifically a Flutter function. Okay. Using run app, what you are basically doing is that you are telling your compiler and you're telling your runtime that hey, whatever I pass inside this run app, this is what you need to run, right? This is what you need to show to the user. Okay. So inside that, I have to pass a widget. Now, I can briefly walk you through the concept of widgets in Flutter, basically. So any flutter project, whenever you are creating these components, right? For example, whatever components you see on the screen right now, you see this, this text, this banner over here, this app bar, this dark thing over here, the button, this text, all of this dash, this white space, each and everything in Flutter is a widget. Okay. Whatever you are going to be doing in Flutter, you are just going to be creating widgets, and then you are going to be adding functionality and appearance to those widgets. Okay. So you can imagine widgets to be your building blocks. You can paint it red, you can paint it white, you can make it flashy, you can give it a shadow, whatever you want, right? Depending on the widget that you're using, there you can use a variety of widgets, and all of those widgets you can customize them appearance wise, and you can also add functionality to them, which we call state, right? You can give them state, you can give them a storage capacity of their own, so that they can maintain certain variables, and then you can change those variables to provide certain functionality. Cool. So everything in Flutter is a widget. Everything is a widget. This is your, you have to remember this line throughout while you're developing in Flutter and with Flutter. doesn't matter if you're a beginner, doesn't matter if you have like 3 years of experience in Flutter, doesn't matter. Okay, everything is, was and will always be a widget. Okay, okay, I'm saying widget too much, but it's fine. So now we'll be, so widgets basically are of two kinds. Okay, so we'll be going through both the kinds of widgets, but right now and we'll go through both the kinds of widgets as and when we encounter them. Okay, so first kind is a stateless widget. Okay, right now what we are doing right now, and if I what I've done right now is not rocket science. I've just pressed STL. So basically, if on VS Code, if you have Flutter and Dart extensions installed, you can just write STL and press tab. So it will generate a boilerplate stateless widget for you. Okay, don't worry, I'll go through all the code that just got generated randomly, and let's say I'll name it DI Club app. Okay, this is like my first widget. This question mark, you might be wondering why this question mark is over here. And in fact, if you're using the latest version of Flutter that you must be using, then you would, this question mark would actually make sense, because recently Dart migrated to null safety and Flutter also migrated to null safety, and they put it in the stable branch. I mean, if towards the end of the session we have time, then I will give you a real-time example of what null safety is and why is it so important. I am not on the null safe version because we don't use it currently for our company project. So that is why I don't have that version installed with me right now. So I'm just going to remove this question mark, but please you don't, right? You will have to stick with it, because for you these are either nullable types or non-nullable types. Okay. Cool. Then inside run app, so basically what we have done right now is just we created a simple class. Like in Java or in any other language, you would be creating classes, right? Similarly, we've just created a very simple class. Okay, and we are going to be instantiating the class. We are going to be creating an object of that class, and that we will pass it over here to to run app method. Okay, so this part is done. Now my my Flutter tooling and my Dart tooling knows that whenever I open whenever they run the main function, what they have to in turn do is that as soon as they go the invocation flow goes inside the main function, then it will execute the run app method, and inside the run app method will be an object of type di club app, which is a stateless widget. Okay, now, what is a stateless widget? So a stateless widget is nothing but a widget that does not have a memory of its own. Okay, so that does not have a state of its own. For example, let's say, um, let's say that I have a component. Okay, let's say that I have a form. Okay, let's say that I have a login form. You have seen login forms everywhere. I mean, on 99% of the apps that you use, you would have had to log in at some point of time, right? On Swiggy, on Zomato, on Netflix, on Prime Video, on whatever app that you are using, that you would have had to log in at some point of time with either your phone number or your email or your username or something, right? So in those forms, they need to be aware of the text that is written in them, right? And they need to react to changes. For example, if let's say I build a text field with real-time validation, okay? So if you, let's say it is an email field, and it has to be with real-time validation, right? So for example, if you are typing in that in real time, it has to check and get back to you. It has to check and get back to you and tell you, hey, is this a valid email or is this not a valid email? Okay, so if the widget is not, I'm so sorry, I will just drink water and come back. Yep, sorry for that. Yeah, I was saying that let's say if that validation form or that email text field didn't know the text that you were typing into it, right? If it didn't know whatever was being typed into it, and if that component or that widget, as we call it in Flutter, didn't know what was being typed into it, then how would it perform the validation, right? You wouldn't know if the email is valid or not. You wouldn't know if you need to show an error message to the user or not, right? You wouldn't know. know all of these things. But if they have a state, right, if they have memory of their own, if they are able to retain and process whatever is being written inside that text field, then they would know, right? So whenever you have a use case wherein your widget needs to be aware of something, wherein your widget needs to store something that will be required for the widget to either react to something or um, carry it forward, some processing or something else, any such thing, then you need a stateful widget, right? But in most cases wherein your widget need not be aware of anything, it would just react to whatever some other widget is telling it, then it can be a stateless widget. Okay, it need not be a stateful widget, it need not have any memory of its own. Okay, as and when we write code, I think it will be much more clearer as to what a stateful widget is and what a stateless widget is. Also, you might see on the left over here that this test folder is now crying out loud because we no longer have a my app, right? And all of these tests that were written for the boilerplate code that was generated are no longer relevant because we no longer have that, right? We no longer have that widget, we no longer have it, we deleted it. And since we're not going to cover tests in this workshop, I might as well go ahead and delete it. Cool. So that I don't see that red popping out again and again and again. Cool. So simple object oriented programming. You create a class and you do inheritance. Okay. So stateless, your DI club app class is inheriting the stateless widget class. Okay. So every time you create a widget, it will either be a stateless widget or a stateful widget. Okay. There are only two possibilities. Okay. So DI club app extends stateless widget. Then what is this? This is just a constructor. This is just a constructor. In fact, I do not have any data members right now in the class. I can just go ahead and remove it. That the when you use the extensions to generate code, they generate boilerplate code. So you can just go ahead and remove it if you don't want it at that point of time. I don't want anything at this point of time on in this class. I don't want to accept anything. So I will just go ahead and remove it. Then the most important method, I think the most important method while you are building in Flutter and while you're learning Flutter is the build method. Right now over here, you can see that in this class, we are overriding a function. Sorry, does someone want to say something?
No, no, you can go.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So while you are building out in Flutter, you will see that whenever you are creating any part of the UI, right? Any part of the UI, whenever you are, creating a new widget, whenever you are, maybe extending another widget or whatever you are doing, right? In order to paint something on the screen, in order to show something on the screen, whatever you want to show on the screen will always be written inside the build method. Okay, the you can see that this is the build method, this is the build function, and we are overriding it. So stateless widget class and stateful widget class, these are the two parent classes that we'll be inheriting throughout our Flutter journey. I still do it, you will also do it, and everyone can do it, right? So whenever you inherit the stateless widget class or the stateful widget class, you have to compulsorily override the build method so that you can return whatever you want to display, whatever you want to display on the screen. Okay, and you can see that right now what is being returned is a container. Okay, container does not have an appearance of its own. Container is like a wrapping block. Okay, container is just like an empty container. So for example, I mean, an empty container is irrelevant, right? You can't give someone an empty container. I mean, it makes sense, a container in itself makes sense only once you put something in it. Like an empty container is of no value on its own. The only value that it provides is that the capability of putting anything inside that container, right? And then that container's characteristics can come into the play. Got it? So basically, like if I have an empty container, if I put laddu into it, then it becomes a sweet box. If I put salt into it, then it becomes a salt box. If I put, like snacks into it, then it becomes a snacks box. right? So a container in itself has some characteristics. Like for example, it might be a rectangular container, it might be a circular container, it might be a red container, might be a blue container, it might be a container with rounded edges. It might be a container which does not have rounded edges. It might be a container which has a border. It might be a container which does not have a border, right? So it has all of these characteristics, but they come to life. Only when you use it in a way that adds value to your widget, right? Or adds value to your application. So right now we won't be using container, right? Because we have just started our application. The application needs to have a starting point, right? And the application starting point, the root widget, from where all our widgets, all the different kinds of widgets are going to stem from, right? The root widget is the material app widget. Similarly for iOS, if you are building only for iOS, you also have the Cupertino app widget. You can use Material app for iOS as well, no problem. I'm just informing that there is also a Cupertino app widget. There is also a widgets app widget. So that if you, I mean, if you do not want to specify any Material app or Cupertino app default behavior, you can just use widgets app. But we generally, all the Flutter developers generally use Material app only. Okay. So we'll be returning, and see, this is complete object oriented programming written in a declarative style. What do you mean by declarative style? Right now we'll see. Okay. So all we'll be doing is that all of these are classes. Okay. Material app in itself is also a class. So, and the beauty of Flutter, so if you hover over material app, press command or control on Windows, and then click on it, then you are directly taken to where that material app class is defined. And you have all of these comments and everything. You have this entire, you can go over this entire documentation that the Flutter team has left for you, and everything is there. So you can go ahead and see the source code of the material app widget or any other widget that you'll be using. For example, stateful widget. This is also a class, right? I can go ahead and see this source code of a stateful widget. So I am able to see the source code of a stateful widget also. If you are interested, you might go ahead and explore this as to how, how this is implemented, right? How was a stateful widget implemented? The meeting controls. So now, right now, you can see that you are inside Flutter. You are inside the Flutter source code, and you are able to see that how all of these were implemented and what is the code that was written for them. Okay. So yeah, about that. Then in Material App, as soon as I've written Material App, I will do some things that I do generally. So this debug banner that you see over here, right? I don't like to see this. I will just put it as false. By the way, this won't be in your release APK because right now you're just building and you're running the app in debug mode. So basically on Android, there are two modes in which you run your app. Your APK can either be a debug APK, right? Which is for used for development purposes. And other thing, it can be a release APK, okay? Which you distribute to your users, okay? So this by default is hidden on release APKs, but during development also, this is just too distracting. So I will just remove it for now. Okay. Then you have a lot of options in Material App. For example, you can specify the theme, you can specify the theme data, etc. For example, in theme, it would expect, okay. In Material App, right now, what we are doing is that we are creating an object of a class called Material App. Okay. Now, when you create an object, how is an object initialized? An object is created and it is instantiated, it is initialized using a constructor, right? So whatever you need for that class to operate properly, you create it using a constructor, right? So whatever we are specifying over here are just parameters that the constructor accepts for Material App. Okay. So यहाँ पे theme में, if you want to know what kind of value are you supposed to pass to any of these parameters. So for example, debug show checkboard banner, what are you supposed to provide it, right? You don't know. So if you want to know, you can just hover over it and you will see that it is of type bool. So you have to provide a boolean value. Okay. So I will just provide a boolean value like I don't want it to be displayed, so I will just say false. Now theme, what do you want? What kind of value does it want? So it wants a value of type theme data. Theme data is another class. Okay, so I will just create an instance of type theme data. See, theme data is done. In theme data, then I will see, okay, what can I pass inside theme data? Inside theme data, I can pass a primary color, brightness, dark, light, everything I can pass. Basically, this is for the theme of the app, right? If you want to have a light theme, if you want to have a dark theme, if you want to have a specific color as your primary color, as your secondary color, whatever you want. I'm just going to select a primary swatch. Okay, what a primary swatch is basically, it's like if I specify a predefined material color, then it will it will keep all the different colors. So for example, the secondary color, the accent color, the primary color, everything it will determine on the basis of the swatch itself. So let's keep it what? Not blue, obviously. Let's keep it amber. Let's see. Acha, right now though we won't show, it won't show anything. Na? See, as soon as I hit save, it reloaded, right? And you're seeing this error right now. Now, if you want to see why this error is, you can just go to the debug console. You can press Control Shift Y, Command Shift Y, Control Shift Y, and it will open the debug console. And you can see that you have this error over here, and you don't know why this error is here, right? Let me just quickly solve the error. And then I'll explain why. Should be back now, I think. Are we not, kya? Cool, we are back. Okay. So now you'll be wondering why that error happened, right? Because I deleted the previous code. Na? If you delete the previous code and then you have changed everything from the ground up, right? So you have changed my app class, you have changed everything from right from the root. So this is the root of your application. If you have changed everything, then hot reload won't work. You have to restart the app completely and then it will work. And which just brings me to that this Amber is looking super weird and this is just wrong. Maybe orange better, na? Is it better? Can we go with orange? Or do you want any other color? Should we go with green? This is much better. Okay, cool. So one thing that you would have noticed up until now is that if you want to show a text, you use a text widget. If you want to show, if you want a color, you can just access a color using colors dot and then whatever you want, right? So I mean, not whatever you want, obviously there is a predefined set of colors, but Flutter is very intuitive, right? So whatever you want, you can just hover, like for example, what does this expect? This expects a widget. So I have created another widget and then I have passed it to it. If somewhere I have to give it a color, so I can just provide, there will be a class named color. If I have to create an app bar, there will be a class named app bar. I mean, it is very intuitive. I mean, if you are able to speak out loud what you want to tell or what you want to show, then there'll probably be a widget just by that name. Okay, so Flutter is very intuitive. Now I'll just walk you through as to what I did. I was going through theme, then I defined the theme of the app. As you can see over here, I have not provided all the different colors, right? I have not provided what to use as the primary color, what to use as the primary secondary color, the accent color. But depending on the primary swatch that I have specified, which is green, it will automatically, uh, get all the different colors. So for example, over here you can see that the primary color is green, but it is already taken the secondary color that you can see over here as a dark green. I have not specified dark green anywhere, but it has automatically taken that. It has computed that on the basis of the primary swatch that I specified. Okay. Now, material app in itself, you can call it like a wrapper. Okay. So it is a wrapper. Okay. And in that you then specify all the different screens that you want in your app. Okay, so every app has more, I mean most of the apps have more than one screen, right? I don't think you would on a day-to-day basis you would be using, like for example, if you let alone the alarm clock, and in alarm clock and calculator and all of those apps, I think those apps also might have multiple screens. Calculator won't, but alarm clock can, right? So if you let alone a very few apps, most of the apps will have multiple screens, right? Multiple screens. So similarly, material app is like an umbrella. Okay, and inside that umbrella you have multiple things. You can have multiple screens. So right now I can specify actually multiple routes. If you see over here, that I can specify routes, and inside this route I can specify all the different screens that I'm going to be having in my app. Right now we do not have multiple screens, okay, but we may towards the end of this workshop, if we have time, we will create multiple screens as well. Okay, so in routes, I can specify all those different screens and everything. Okay. And in home over here, so the home property is like, what is the home screen of your app? As soon as someone opens your app, what should be displayed, right? That is this. So your home screen, whatever you pass inside the home screen has to be displayed. Okay. And I have passed, like for example, as I told you, everything in Flutter is a widget. Okay. Material app was a widget. So whatever you pass into home screen will also be a widget. So my home screen is also a widget and we have created it. Okay. Now coming inside home screen, you can see that it is the same. It is also a stateless widget. We already went through what a stateless widget is, right? A widget that does not have any memory of its own. Okay. Then we have a build method that we use to override, and then we're returning something that we want to be displayed on the screen. Okay. Now, in over here, you see that there are multiple widgets. This is declarative programming. You are nesting one thing inside the other. Sometimes, I mean, for example, in our app also, in front row app also, there is a material app, and inside that material app, then that nesting continues to, I don't know, hundreds of levels deep, right? And you can go as deep as possible. I can just keep nesting it as deep as possible. Okay, there is no limit on that, so you can just keep nesting it. So for my home screen, I have something called, I'm returning something called a scaffold. Now what is a scaffold? What is a scaffold widget? Scaffold is something like, for example, if you're a painter, okay, then you would have a canvas. You would have a canvas on which you would then paint whatever you wanted to, right? Scaffold is that canvas. Scaffold is that blank canvas on which you can then paint your widgets on the screen. That is exactly what scaffold is. So if I just remove this app bar from here, I will just remove it. You can see that this is a blank canvas. This is white. Nothing is here, right? This is white. So scaffold is like a templated blank canvas that gives you a few handy options, like putting the app bar, putting the bottom navigation bar, putting the floating action button. Also, all of these are like UI elements. It gives you all of that. But if you do not want any of these, you can just get rid of these. I do not want an app bar. So I will not have an app bar, but I want one right now. So I'm having one. Okay. But if I do not want one, I can also not have one, right? Cool, perfect. So we are back and AppBar is there. So by the way, I've been using the term AppBar quite frequently. This at the top, this is called the AppBar. Okay. Inside the AppBar again. So you want to know what all properties are there inside the AppBar. What can you set? What can you change? What can you configure? Right. So I will just hover over AppBar and you will see all the different properties. You can specify a leading widget. You can specify a title widget. You can specify flexible space, etc., etc. There's a lot of these things that you can specify. So for example, I want my app bar to have a title. So I will just specify a title. Now title in itself also is a widget. Okay. I can have an icon also as a title. I can have an image also as a title. I can have whatever I want as a title. I want a text, so I'm keeping a text. Generally, you would want a text as the title. So I'm keeping the text, but I can have whatever widget I want. I can literally put any widget inside this title, any widget. Okay. So I have a text widget that I want as a title. Inside the text widget, okay, I will give you a very important concept of Flutter right now, of Flutter or Dart in general right now. So in Dart, you basically when you write a function, let's say my super function. Cool. So this is a function that there is a Dart function that I've written. Okay. Now in this function, there is a return type, there is a function name, there can be a list of parameters, right, that you can pass to this function, and then there can be a return statement. This does not require a return statement, or let's just put a return statement. Let's make the return type to string and then just put, let's return something. Di club. Cool. This is like a general function. Okay. But in Dart, you can have two types of parameters. What we have right now, this is called a positional argument. Why is this called a positional argument? Is if I have multiple things. So whenever I need to call this function, for example, if I have to call this function, let's say from another function. If I have to call this function, this my super function from another function. So let's say my super function. I can't call this function from another function without specifying these positional arguments, right? These are required for the function to process, right? And right now I've not used them, but these are positional arguments. I need them for the function to be called. I can't compile, I won't be able to compile the code if I don't specify those, right? For example, I will have to specify 2 comma abc, okay, 2 comma string value in order for this function to be executed. Now this is correct code, okay, but let's say I had, and you have to specify it in the same order. If the first one was int, second one was string, third one was something, you have to specify it in the same order, right? But what if I have 10 of these? What if I have bool a, then I have something like int, you know, genie, then I have something, some other data type, random data type, and I keep having these parameters, like I have 20 of these. So it is a very bad developer experience, right? You have to keep on remembering, okay, this was for this was for this was for this. It is a very bad developer experience, right? You don't know while you are calling the function. It is very easy to make mistakes and to pass some value into some other value. Okay. There comes the concept of optional parameters, or what we call name parameters, named parameters. Okay. So what we have written over here, this int allow, this is a positional argument or a positional parameter. And right, if you do it like this, if you put in curly braces like this and then put name, this is what we call a named argument. Okay. These are optional, these are optional by default. So if I put string name like this inside curly braces in the parameter list, then this is an optional named parameter. And now when I have to call this function, I can call this function without specifying the name as well. See, no compile time issue, no compile time issue whatsoever. Okay. But if I want to specify the name, I can just mention that I'm specifying the name and then put in di club or whatever value I want. Do you understand the difference and how easy it makes everything? So for example, if let's say in the app bar, you can see how many parameters it accepts. One, okay, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 so definitely more than 15, right? If imagine if these all were positional arguments, you would have to know exactly at what position you want to specify. right? Which value? But that would have just wasted your time. Now, because we have positional, because we have named arguments and those are optional, so you can just specify whatever value you want, and whatever value you don't want, you can just handle it over here. And let's say, for example, you want to use named arguments, but you also want them to be required. You want them to be required and you want people to send them. For example, right now these are optional by default, right? But I also want them, or want, you to send these. So I will just put an annotation at the rate of required before it. Now if I don't specify it, it will give me a warning. See, it is giving me a warning. It is saying the parameter name is required, you need to send it. It is not a compilation error, but it will at least give me a warning ki, hey, you need to specify name, please specify name, right? I think for you guys it would in newer versions of Flutter, this is now no more an annotation, this is or more of a keyword. So you will have to specify required without the at the rate, and it will work for you, and then it will give you a compilation error as well. Okay, so this is the concept of positional arguments and named arguments. Okay, so because we would be using all the named arguments, so I wanted to clear this up before we proceed. Okay, so यहाँ पे in text widget we can see that the first parameter string data that you want to show, whatever you want to show as a text, that is a positional argument. You need to specify that no matter what. I mean, obviously if you want to display some text, you're supposed to tell the text widget what text you want to display, right? You can't just expect it. I mean, what will it display? The purpose of the text widget is defeated if you don't pass the data. So it is important, so it is required, and it is positional. You need to specify the text. Then if you want to change the text, so for example, if you want to change the color of the text or anything, whatever you want, you can use the style property inside the text widget. And that style property, if you just hover over it, you will see that it takes an instance of type text style. So I will just then, again, just create text style widget, not text style widget. This is not a widget, this is just a class. Okay, so I will instantiate text style and go through all the properties it has. So for example, it can either inherit the properties from the theme, or you can specify the color, the background color, the font size, font weight, font style, letter spacing, word spacing, whatever you want, you can specify that. Okay, so right now I specified the color white. Let's say what happens if I just take it off. It will still be white because it is inheriting it from our theme, and our theme dictates that if the background is green, then the text color will be white by default. Okay, but I can change it, I can override that. So if I want blue, so I will have blue. If I want black, I will have black. If I want anything yellow, let's say, I don't know, I'll have yellow, whatever you want, right? Let's stick to white though. Okay, so you can specify that. So let's say if you want to specify decoration, like you want to decorate your text, so I can do text decoration dot underline. So there's an underline now. If I want it to strike through, then it is now, there is a strike through. So a lot of all of these options you can play with, and you can customize your text. Okay, so this is one widget. Now we have had this, then let's move on. So in a scaffold, in this scaffold, like in this screen, I want to specify a body. Okay, I want the screen to have a body, and inside that body I didn't want to build something. Okay, so for example, let's say what do you want to build? We can build anything, कुछ भी build कर सकते हैं. Let's say if I want to show an image in the center of the screen. Okay, I want to show an image in the center of the screen. Then I want that image widget to be centered. Let's just show an image first. Okay, so I want to show an image. So like if you wanted to show a text, you would use a text widget. If I want to show an image, I will use the image widget. Okay, but the image widget in itself offers you a lot of handy constructors for you to be able to show the image that you want. For example, if I want to show an image from a URL, okay, if I want to show an image from the internet, then I will use image.network. If I want to show an image that I have bundled in my assets folder, then I will do image.asset. Okay, so let's just pick one image, random image from the internet. Uh, let's just show the DI club image. Na? I think I can get it on LinkedIn, na? Guys.
I can send it
Yeah.
to you maybe if you want.
नहीं वो LinkedIn पे
Yeah,
मिल जाएगा. I
LinkedIn.
think
Yeah,
वहाँ पे I
LinkedIn.
can get the URL also. Design and Innovation Club. Got it. Yeah, so I can just copy the image address from here and let me just close it and put it over here. Okay. So, and let me just save. See, you have the image, whatever image you wanted to display. Now you have that image available to you. Okay. And it's visible, but we want to, let's say, change the height and width of this image. I mean, it's just too big, right? I don't want this image to be too big. So I can change the height of this image. So let's say I want this image just to be 100 logical pixels tall, in height. And I want it to be, let's say, 200 pixels in width. So I can change that. I can do that. See, it reflects quite fast. Now I want this image to be in the center of the screen. I want this image to be in the center of the screen. Absolutely. So what I'll do is just I can wrap this widget on VS Code. If you press command dot, then this will appear, this menu will appear, or you can just right click on this widget, go to refactor. If you go to the refactor menu, then this will appear, this menu will appear. Then you have to click on wrap with widget, and then you can just specify any widget that you want to wrap it with. I want to wrap it with a center widget. So like, see how intuitive Flutter is. You want to make something centered, just wrap it with a center widget and it will get centered. See, now it is in the center of the screen. So easy, right? It is just, it's just too easy, right? It's just very easy. Now we have seen a few common widgets that you would be working with 90% of the times, but 10% of the times you would have to do interesting things that are not achievable via these normal basic widgets. Okay, for example, let's say I have to turn this image, whatever image I have, I can see that this eye is like this, right? What if I want to turn this image by a few angle, by a certain angle? I want to rotate this. So how will I go about that? Let's just Google. We'll Google something and we'll find out, right? So let's say I want uh, Flutter rotate widget by some angle. Okay. So Stack Overflow has this thing, and it is saying ki, how do you rotate the widget? So it is like saying ki you can do rotation transition, you can do rotated box. Okay. Like if I want to rotate it by 90 degrees, 180 degrees, or 270 degrees, I can just use something called rotated box. Let's try if that works. So I want to rotate this image. So I will just wrap this image in something called a rotated box widget. Oh my, rotated box. Then I will put in quarter turns. Okay, quarter turns. As is this an int? Ha, it requires an int. So if I put this 1, you can see that it has been rotated 90 degrees, right? If I put this 2, 180 degrees, 3, 270 degrees, and if I do 4, then it will just come back, right? So it's just too small, no? We can make it bigger, right? Cool. So like this, I mean, the point of doing this was not just to have fun, but to show you that Flutter has a huge library of widgets. It is humongous. If you want to go through all the widgets, you can go through. You can just open flutter.dev, then go to docs, go to widgets catalog, flutter.dev docs widget catalog, and over here you can see that there are so many widgets. And I mean, these are just categories, these are not the widgets, these are just categories. because earlier they used to have all the widgets displayed over here. Then people started to complain and say that these are like too many widgets. I don't know what widget and how to find it. So they were like, okay, let us categorize it so that you can find it. So for example, if you want to if you want widgets that can help you with the layout of things, then you can just go to layout and you will see all of these different types of widgets. All of these are widgets, and each one of those widgets has an example, proper documentation of all the parameters that you can pass to those widgets and all of those things. See, so many things. Then you have multi-child layout widgets, you have sliver widgets. These are all like different kinds of widgets that you can use. So then if you want to change the aspect ratio, no, sorry, piche. So we went through layout widgets. If you want to know the widgets that you can use for taking input from the user, then these are the widgets that you can take for input from the user. Then, material components. If you want to know all the material components, there are like so many of these, so many widgets that you can use, right? So all the widgets in Flutter can be found over here. At least most of them can, right? Please go through them in your free time. I mean, for most of the times what happens is that if we face some problem in Flutter, what I used to do previously was that I used to find a very hacky solution for it. I used to like try to implement it on my own, and then after 2 days I would find that there is already a widget that exists for this exact purpose. For this exact purpose there is a widget. This I used to find afterwards. So the point of showing you this rotated box was that if a requirement comes in the future in your way that you're supposed to rotate something, if you're supposed to show something with a particular aspect ratio or something like that, then you know what to do, right? You know that you're supposed to first go through the widget library, search for a widget that can do this for you, and if you don't find a widget, then try to implement it on your own using the existing widgets. Okay, so that was it for the widgets. Cool. I will just quickly remove it. Okay, perfect. Now, this is there. Again, I थोड़ा सा बड़ा कर सकते हैं. 200. Cool. So this is there. Now, another purpose might be to, vertically align more widgets, right? For example, if I have this design and innovation, I might also want to display the name of the workshop below this logo, right? For example, if I'm having a workshop, if I'm creating an app or a page for this, then I would want to display the name of the name of whatever workshop I'm having below this, right? So over here I can do that. For example, I can have, there is a widget called size box that you can use. यहाँ पे नहीं, I can't put it over here because this is a single child widget. Center is a single child widget. You can't specify multiple children. So if I have to vertically align or vertically lay out different widgets or different parts of my UI, then what I will do is that I can just get rid of the center widget. Okay, then I will wrap this image.network in a column. So yeah, you want a column, you get a column. Okay, then in that column, this is a multi-child widget. So this, see, it takes children, it takes a list of widgets, it does not take a single child, right? So image.network, then below this image, I want some space to be there. I don't want the text to just stick over here. Or let's just do the text first. So for example, text, then in the text I want the name of this workshop. Let's say the name of this workshop. What is the name of the workshop? Starting out in mobile development with Flutter, the huge name. Okay, so I wanted this and I want this text to be black. So colors dot black, and cool. Let's just see what appears on the screen. Okay, now you can see that because I removed the center widget, everything is just gone to the top, right? Everything is just gone to the top. So now my text is in black, but it is also towards the left. I don't want it to be towards the left. I want it towards the center. So my text widget accepts a property called align. So I will just give it text align and text align dot center. That will bring it to the center. Okay, it didn't. Why did it not? That's sad, na? Because column का जो layout है, whatever layout that we are using in column right now, basically for columns there is a main axis alignment and there is a cross axis alignment. Okay, for a column the main axis is this, the vertical axis, that you're seeing right now, and the cross axis is this, the horizontal axis, that is the x axis. So for a column the main axis is the y axis and the cross axis is the horizontal, the x axis, right? So you can specify how you want to align these children widgets along the main axis. Along the main axis I want them to be in the center, so I will just do a main axis alignment dot center. Okay, let's just remove this line and see what this does. So now you see that they're in the center. Okay, but I also want them to be in the center along the cross axis. So I will just do cross axis alignment dot center, but nothing is happening. Why is nothing happening? This is so sad, na? And something should happen, right? This is because these individual elements in themselves, they are not taking space. Okay, I can show you something interesting. Can you see? So if you see over here, then this column in itself, the width of this column is only up until this point of this place, right? So it feels that, hey, I'm in the center, but it is not, because we as developers, we wanted to take the full width of the screen, right? We wanted to take the full width of the screen. We do not want it to just take the width of, whatever the largest width element is. So we do not want that. So how will that be solved? That is where your container comes in. I told you about the containers, right? Containers in themselves may or may not provide value, but they have certain characteristics that can add value to other widgets, right? Also, I've been speaking for a while now, so I'm audible, right? Please someone
Yes,
say
I.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Cool. Just checking in because I don't want to just keep speaking and in the background the meeting is over, everyone has gone home and I'm just speaking.
Man.
Okay, take it. Cool. Anyways. So yeah, this is where the container comes in. Okay. This is where I'm going to define the space that this column is going to take. Okay. So I will just wrap this column inside a container. And then you will see that if you go inside container, it has a lot of handy properties, one of which is width. You can specify the width of a container. Okay. Now I'm going to show you another super helpful class, and the name of that class is media query. So using the media query class, if you do media query dot of context dot size dot width, then see, now it is in the center. Now I will explain what happened. Okay. So there we had a column, but it was not taking the full width because the largest width element that we had was this text. Okay. And this text, jitna whatever width it wanted, it was taking only utna width. Okay. So what we did is that we wrapped the column inside a container. Okay. We were like, you see, you go inside this container. Okay. And then we gave that container a width. Okay, we gave that container a width. We said, okay, let me give you a simple analogy. For example, if you would have done, if you have, sent a parcel via courier, right? You're not documents, a parcel like an object via courier or speed post or whatever, then you would know that they charge you both for the dimensions of the parcel and they charge you also for the weight of the parcel. Okay, so if let's say the parcel is 600 grams or 800 grams, let's say, okay, they will charge you for those 800 grams. And but it doesn't matter, let's say 800 grams, it was just like a 10 centimeter object that weighs 800 grams. Okay, that's fine, it's fine. But if you put it inside a box that is 2 feet by 2 feet, okay, if you put it inside a box that is 2 feet by 2 feet, the box will still occupy 2 feet by 2 feet, right? the box is huge. Your object may have been 10 centimeters, doesn't matter, right? But when they ship it, the space that it is going to occupy would be 2 feet by 2 feet, right? The area that would be needed would be square feet. So I mean, how you need to, they have to charge dimensionally also, because weight might be based on the density of the object, but it you also need to take into account how much space this is going to need, right? So it doesn't matter how much space the column needs. I have force fitted it to fit the entire screen width. Okay. And this is a handy way of accessing the screen width. Basically, media query class, if you do this, if you do media query.off context, it gives you a lot of information regarding the screen you are on. Okay. And this class right now would seem very trivial, very basic, but trust me, this is one of the most important class in Flutter, because this is how you are going to be making your apps responsive, and this is how you are going to be making your apps adaptable to different screen sizes. For example, if you choose to become an Android developer in the future, okay, in the future you become an Android developer or an iOS developer or any kind of developer on the front end, then you would know that whatever code you write or whatever design you make in your app, it has to look the same, or at least it has to adapt to different screen sizes. For example, not all the screens are of the same size, right? Some have different aspect ratio, some have different aspect ratio, some are broader, some are like more in height as compared to others. The iPhone aspect ratio is completely different from Samsung aspect ratio, right? So you need to make your app in a way that is responsive across screen sizes, right? And one of the ways to do that is to, primarily it is a design problem. So whoever designs the app has to make the designs in such a way that they are solvable via, they are responsive by default. But in some places wherein you need to hard code some values, for example, if I hard code this value right now, I have hard coded certain values now. I have hard coded the dimensions of this image to be 200 by 200, right? This is something that I've hard coded. I've just put it out there, but it may not necessarily, this 200 by 200 on my phone it looks good, right? But on a smaller device, if I run this app on a smaller device, it will look too huge, it will take too much of space. And because I will have multiple elements on my screen, if it takes so much of space, that might mess up my design, it might defeat the purpose of my app, right? It would be a bad UI experience for the user. So in order to tackle that, you most of the times you would be using media query, right? And using media query, you will be able to get the height and width of the screen at runtime, and you can make it. For example, what I can do right now is that I can print out the width, right? I can print this width also. So there is a print statement. So inside print, let's say I have a print statement. I have this snippet, so I'm just using them. You can just write a print statement, and inside that print, if I just print this, whatever value it is, so you can see that the value is 384. Okay, 384. Now, what had I put over here was 200, right? So 200 by 384, how much is it? 0.521, let's say 0.52. Okay. So now I can just write it like this. I can just put double screen, sorry.
No, you continue. It was
Okay. I can just create a variable, store the screen width that I have received. Then inside the screen width, I can just pass that screen width over here, and I can make my image. I can just remove the height. I can make my image of the width of type 0.52 into the screen width. Now it may not necessarily be 200 for every, for every screen. If I run it on a different screen, it will not be 200, but I know for a fact that it will look kind of the same. I mean, the aspect ratio might be different, be different definitely, but it will look the kind of the same because it will be 0.5 to fraction of the screen width, right? This is how you can make your apps responsive and adaptable to and your designs adaptable to different screen sizes. This is just one of the way, the most basic way. There are many more advanced ways of doing it, and this is primarily a design problem. So generally UI designers, when they come up with designs, they generally tend to come up with designs that do not involve any hard coding, right? But yeah, this is one way. So this is a very important class, media query. Similarly, you can get the height also. If I want the height also, I can get it like just like that. The size object has both the height and the width. Anyways, circling back, so image and text, but as you can see, the text is just like very close to the image, right? So let's just introduce a gap. So I can just put a sized box. Size box is also a widget of type height 20. Also, matlab, I know the primary question that would be in your mind is, how would we know which widget to use? With practice. The answer to that is with practice. As in as in when you start writing code in Flutter, as you keep building, you will memorize all of these widgets, you will memorize all of these properties just by virtue of practice. Initially you will have to go ahead and look for them, like how do I do this, how do I do that, and Google will give you all the answers, right? But as you write more and more and more code, like for example, I've been writing this code since 2018, so I know all of this by heart. Similarly, if you practice more and more, if you build more and more projects, you will also know all of this by heart. No problem in that. Okay, cool, perfect. Okay, then we have seen some, like different widgets. We have seen like a column, a container, an image, text, size box. Let's also see a row. Okay, let's also see a row. So let's say this text, I want an icon before this. So I will just put wrap it with a row, okay, and I can have an icon. So like intuitive as we are, Flutter is very intuitive. So the widget name is icon, okay, just like text, just like image, the widget name is icon, and it takes an icon. Obviously, it wants to, the icon widget wants something to be displayed, right? So similarly, it wants an icon, so I can just give it an icon. What icon is this? I don't know. Oh, this is like the pin icon. Okay. So this is like a map icon. Okay. I can also adjust the size and everything. So for example, I want to make it the size 18. I can make it smaller like that. Let's make it bigger, 24. So now it's bigger. Okay. Then in a row, I want to create some space between this text and this, right? So I will just put a size box again of, let's say, 20, 10 or something. Right now there is a space. Now see, you saw the difference, right? When I was in a column, I introduced a size box of height 20, right? But now that I'm inside a row, height 20 doesn't work. I have to give it width 10, right? So that it separates both these widgets along the width. Now I want this entire row to be centered. I do not want it to be here. This is happening because row in itself has main axis alignment set to start. And as I said, main axis alignment for row will be, main axis will be the x-axis and cross axis will be the y-axis. As for column, main axis y-axis and cross axis the x-axis. Okay. So main axis alignment, and I will give it a center. Cool. So now it is in the center again. Perfect. Um, we have seen, I mean, trust me when I say this, these are the widgets that you would be using the most for whatever design you pick up, whatever you have to create. These are the widgets that you would be using the most. Okay. But there is one more widget that you might want to use, that you might have to use a lot. Okay. And let's go over it. So inside this row only, I will now create something else. I will just separate it out again, 20. And let's say now let's go through the potential of a container, what a container can do. Okay, so we have used a container, but we haven't seen its true potential, right? So let's go through its true potential. So let's say I want to create a circular container. Okay, so I wanted to give it, I want to give it a height of, let's say, um of, I mean, I can give it a height of, let's say, 0.4 into screen width. Also, you would have noticed that I put in a leading underscore before the variable name. Did you see this leading underscore before the variable name? So Dart has this amazing concept that if you want to make something private, you would have, uh, I mean, you would have read about these private variables, public variables, private members, public members, protected members, right? So in Dart, if you prefix anything, any variable or any method name with an underscore, right, it automatically becomes private. You don't have to specify the private keyword. It will just automatically become private. That's just cool about Dart. Anyways, so coming back, container screen width, same width also I want to keep the same. So it's like a square right now. Then there is something called a decoration that you can pass to container, and if you hover over it, you will see that it takes a decoration class, but I'm going to give it a box decoration class. Okay, box decoration is just like a subset of decoration. Yeah, as you can say, like stateless widget is a subset of widget, stateful widget is a subset of widget, right? It's like something that inherits that class. So box decoration inherits decoration. I can then specify a color, let's say colors dot red. I like the color red, so red. And if I just save it right now, you can see that there is a red container. What if I want to make this a circle? I will just use the decoration class now. Okay, so shape box shape dot circle, and I know this because I've been doing this for a while. If you don't know this, you can just hover over this. You will see that there is something called a shape. You will see that it is using an enum called box shape dot rectangle. So you can just put shape, then you can go inside box shape. It will tell you ki whatever enum you can use. You can use rectangle, you can use circle. Okay, so similarly, if I just put circle over here, it will become a circle. It's just too much on the eyes, no? I can put something else. Red accent maybe. Yeah, it's much comfortable on the much more comfortable on the eyes. So yeah, like that, I have a container. Okay. Now I have a container. Cool. Perfect. Now let's say if I want to give it a border, I want to give this container a border. Okay. So I will just do border dot all, and I will put in the width and the color of the border. Let's say I want to give it a yellow border, but it's hardly visible, right? So let's increase the width of the border as well. Let's say it 4. See, it's like the morning sun, no? I'm an artist. Wow. Sorry. Anyways, so you have this cool shape right now. Okay. Then, okay, now you have this cool shape, but what use is it now? What do you want to do with it? Okay, so let's try to place, see, this is just the container right now. I've not done anything else. This is just a container. I built this cool shape with just a container. Okay, this is almost concentric circles. These are concentric circles of it, definitely, but now I can specify a child to this container. So let's say I specify a child. I want that child to be centered, so I will make it center. Then I'll give it a child as well. Yeah, just put it on do not disturb. No, you can put it on do not disturb. So distracting to see WhatsApp messages coming in. Then I can maybe put an icon, or let's just say sun. Just write sun. Like too obvious, but yeah. Not doing anything new. Whatever we have done up until now, same old, same old. Sorry, colors white. sun. It says sun. Then now, but I want it to be bigger. So like 20. Let's see how much 20, how much font size 20 is. Oh, let's make it 22 maybe. I don't know. 24 is fine, I think. Cool. Then font weight, I also want it to be bold. So sorry. Cool. So it's we have like a bold sun text written over here. Perfect. Okay. Now let's do something interesting now. This is like okay, it's fine. It's there. Cool. You should be able to do something interesting, right? I mean, whenever you would have heard about, okay, I want to interact with you guys for a bit because I am a bit bored of speaking alone. Okay, so let me just quickly try to find how I can get back. Acha, escape, na? Haan, perfect. Oh, there is a chat. Yes. Acha, you know, the mama said yes for some other thing that I might have asked. Anyways, folks, can you please unmute yourself? Whenever I mean, you would have at least Googled Flutter once, right? Before coming to this workshop. Obviously, you would have definitely, right? You would have at least Googled Flutter once, abhi tak. So, whenever you Googled Flutter for the first time, what stood out? Why are you in this workshop? Apart from the fact that you will get a certificate, I think, at the end of it. Why are you in this workshop? What has brought you here? Or till now, whatever I've told you about Flutter, what has stood out the most?
The fact that you can create for multiple platform with one single code instead of learning their each and everything like for Swift and stuff like that.
Okay, perfect. Any other person wants to say something? Why are you here? Like apart from the fact that you will get a certificate, what has stood out about Flutter till now?
Because Flutter is faster and is more practical than other.
Perfect, definitely. And we have seen how fast that is. We have built like all of this in like what, like no time at all. Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? Please say something.
It has wide amount of widgets and like a lot of options for the developer.
Yes, definitely true. Anything else? Please speak up, everyone. Please, 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 please.
Has much demand.
Yeah, that is true. Anyone else has something to say? Please say something. Because if you don't say something, it's as if I mean you just joined the meeting and then you're watching Netflix on the side, which would be very disappointing for me. So please say something. Anybody, please. Okay, fine. We've got some decent answers, and yeah, all of those features have actually stood out. All of those, features, all of these advantages that Flutter gives you have, made is what are the features that make the developer experience so amazing, right? But let's say, uh, I think you would have also heard that in Flutter, animations are quite easy, right? So if you try to do animations in native Android development or native iOS development or web development, etc., not so easy, not so easy. These are actually so easy in Flutter. Okay, you don't believe me? I will show you. Okay. So now is our chance to go to a stateful widget rather than a stateless widget. Okay. So we will just convert our home screen, whatever home screen that we have right now, we will convert it into a stateful widget. Okay. So this is our home screen. We will convert it into a home stateful widget. If you just right click on it, right click on stateless widget, go to refactor, you will only have one option that says convert to stateful widget. I will convert it. Now you see that it has been converted to a stateful widget. Okay. Now I can just hot reload once, hot restart once, just to ensure that we are on the same page. Okay. Now Cool. Now our home screen is a stateful widget. Okay. Now, because of this stateful widget, what we can do is that we can have variables of the class itself, right? We can store data in the class and we can change that data, and that data change will then affect the UI. Okay. What if I want to animate the sun in some way, right? I want to animate the sun in some way. This sun is not shining right now. This sun is very static, right? It is supposed to be shining, right? It is supposed to be, shedding its light and its energy and its positivity upon the earth and making life possible on earth. I mean, life is possible on earth because of the sun, right? Otherwise, we would be a cold planet. So, what we'll be doing is that we'll be creating a state variable. So inside the class, we'll just be creating a state variable of type bool. Okay. Now, not bool actually. We'll just do, let's say, what can we do? La 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 la. I will do of type double. Okay. Double shine bright. Shine bright width. Okay. And I will put this to what is the border width right now? 16, right? The border width is 16. Perfect. Okay. Shine bright width, border width is 16. Okay. Now I will pass shine bright width to the border. See, no change because it's still 16, right? Everything is just like the way it was before. Okay. But this is not what we want. We want something else, right? We want the sun to be shining, but the sun is not shining right now. So I will change this container to something called an animated container. Same thing, exactly all the same properties, but it requires just something else, and it requires a duration. So if you change something in decoration, in anything, in the container, then it needs to know the duration through which it will, animate. Or let's give it a duration. Now let's not use the default one. Let's say I want to give it a duration. Oh, right. Also, like Flutter, as intuitive as it is, duration takes a duration. So if you want to give it a duration, there is a class named duration. Okay. Then I want it to be done in like 800 milliseconds. Sorry. Curves dot. Is my voice breaking? Yeah.
No, it's clear only, Ayush.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. So still no change, right? Still no change. Still no change. But what if I want the sun to shine? So let's arrange for it to shine. Okay. Now in Scaffold, we had gone inside the body, but what we can also do is floating action button. Okay. So we'll create a floating action button. Again, floating action button takes a floating action button. See how easy it is. I mean, if you know what you're looking for, and you will once you start building and you code more and more applications, you will know. So if you want to pass a floating action button, you have a floating action button, right? So, and in that floating action button, I think I can give any child or anything like that. Yeah. On pressed is required. Okay. I have to tell it what to do when the floating action button is pressed. But child, I can give anything. Let's say I can give an icon. Is there an icon of the sun that we have? No, I don't think so. No. Shine, toggle or something. Yeah. Cool. Now we have a floating action button. Okay. And on the press of this floating action button, I want the sun to shine. Okay. So I can just do, there is some, when you're using a stateful widget, then you can set the state using which you can update the state. So what is our state? Shine bright width. Or like shine width, is too big. Shine width. Okay. So shine width, okay. shine width. So now when you're using stateful widgets, you can use this method called set state to actually change the state that you are maintaining in your class, and as a virtue of that your UI will should get rebuilt. Okay, so set state, and guys, I'm also live coding, this may not work at all. Okay, so please don't hate me for that. uh shine width, and I want this to be, let's say, what, 16, no, I want this to be 32. Okay, perfect. Now if I press on this, you see what happened? Did you see what happened? It, I mean, it shrink, right? The sun shrink because the border increased from 16 to 32. Let's do some interesting things now. Okay, so let's create another variable called is shining, and the initial value of that, am I spelling it right? Shining, shining, yeah. And the initial value of that variable will be false. Let's put, okay, shining will be false. Okay, and on the press of this, if basically we will check, okay, not doing anything, like no, very basic programming, is if is shining, then we will set state and change it to 16, and change is shining to false. And if it is not shining, else if it is not shining, then we will do the set state, change it to 32, and change this to true. Okay, now this toggle also, toggle on, we want to toggle on if the toggle is off, right? So is shining, if it is on, then we want to turn it off, otherwise we want it off. Okay, you know what this is, right? This is like a normal, just a general ternary operator you would have seen in programming across languages. There is a ternary operator. That is all I have done. There is a boolean variable, and it is determining which icon I have to display. Okay, so if it is on by default, I want to turn it off. If it is off, I want to turn it on. Okay, makes sense, right? Cool. I will just restart it so that the state gets reset once again. Perfect. Now you will see what happens. See, this is also, the icon is also changing. If I keep pressing on it, I can just keep on animating it. See, this is an example of a user interactive animation, wherein you make an interaction with the app, right? And as a consequence of that interaction, something animates in your app or some UI changes in your app. See, it is giving you feedback, right? The app is giving you feedback that, hey, sun is shining. It is too slow, no? This is too slow. Fast, we can make it faster, 200. See, just become faster, right? What if you wanted to add, what if you wanted to automate this? Right now we need to do this manually, right? We have to, every time we want this to shine, we have to, keep on changing this, right? We have to keep on changing this. I'm not even sure if this is this is called shining, but it's fine. Whatever it is, whatever is happening, we have to keep on manually doing it, right? This is not a good method. Like, why do I need to manually keep doing it? So let me just do this. Let me just take this function out from here. I will just take this function out, and let me get rid of this floating action button. I don't want to be pressing something. I just want it to happen on its own. Toggle shine operation. Okay, I already have this function, but now I want this function to be called automatically. Okay, I want this function to be called automatically. I don't know how, I don't know why. I just want this function to be called automatically because I don't want to keep on pressing that button again and again and again. Right? So that button is now gone away. I don't want that button. Perfect. Now, for that, we will make use of something called a timer. So I just, in the state, I will just create something called a timer, like shine timer. Okay, I will have to import. So right now, as you can see, it is giving me an error because it is not a part of the material file. Till now, we have imported only one file, right? We have imported just the material file. But I want another file in order to use this timer class. That is the Dart async. This is inside the Dart package, and the name of the file is async. Okay, perfect. Then shine timer, right? Now, do you have any idea about life cycle methods? Anyone has any clue about what life cycle methods is? Others, not, this question is not for you because I know that you will know. Anyone else who has any idea about life cycle methods? What I mean, what do you get from the name? What do you understand from the name life cycle method? Any idea, any random speculation, any random guess that you might have?
Um, well,
Any random guess?
sir,
Yeah, yeah.
basically. So it's basically the like kind of like constructor and constructor kind of thing. Like it starts from with the init state and insert like the destroy.
Yep, perfect. That is perfect. That is exactly what it is. So basically, any widget in Flutter has a life. Okay, just like us humans, we have a life. Similarly, those widgets also have a lifespan, right? They are born and then they have to eventually die, right? So just like us, just like humans. So these are the methods, these are just handy callbacks that you can use to perform certain operations inside your widget. So for example, if like right now, what is my use case? My use case is that I need to create and start an automatic timer. Okay, I need to create and start an automatic timer that is going to automate the animation that I was previously doing manually, right? So I need to start this timer right at the beginning. As soon as this widget is born, I have to start this timer, otherwise there will be inconsistency, right? As soon as this widget is built, as soon as we see the sun being displayed over here, my timer should start, my automation process should start, right? So there are a lot of life cycle methods. I will show you some like quickly. I will show you quickly some easy ones. So there is init state. This is a life, and also these life cycle methods are offered only inside a stateful widget, right? The a stateful widget has a life cycle. Stateless widgets, if they get rebuilt, they are like entirely rebuilt. But stateful widgets not, that is not the case. Okay, they can also get updated since they have a state of their own, since they have memory of their own, right? Okay, cool. So there is an init state method. As soon as the execution comes inside this widget, the first method before the build method is executed, before this build method is executed, the first method that will be executed is the init state method. Okay. In that init state method, what I will do is that I will initialize this shine timer. See, I've declared it, but I have not initialized it, right? So I will just quickly initialize it. Shine timer is equal to, I want a periodic timer. I'm just creating a timer that is going to repeat again and again for a particular duration. Okay. And I will just put that duration as something. Okay. For this is whatever I specify inside the duration. After that duration, it will fire again. For example, if I specify something like 1 second, so it will fire every 1 second. If I specify 5 minutes, it will fire every 5 minutes. Okay, so I want this to fire every second. Okay, so I will just do that duration, and I will give the value as seconds 1. Okay, so this will fire every 1 second. Okay, and inside the function, whatever I want to execute, I will just execute this function. I will just call this function. Cool, perfect. Now I have this inside init state and I have this blah 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 and everything. But now if I don't see, now this timer will start and it will just continue on and on and on. It will just go on. Okay. See, there is no, for example, if I just do sign timer dot start, there is no start method. As soon as this timer is initialized, it will start. Okay. But it will not stop. How to make it stop? I need to make it stop, right? So there is something called a dispose method. Dispose is also a life cycle method. Just like init state is called right at the starting of when the widget begins, right? When the widget is first brought into memory. Similarly, dispose is called right before. I mean, the moment before you are going to dispose of that widget and you are going to have nothing to do with that widget anymore. Okay. Just before that widget dies, you if we can get the dispose callback. So in here, I'm just going to do shine timer dot cancel. I'm going to cancel it. Okay. Perfect. Makes sense. Now I will quickly refresh it. Restart it. Sorry. See, now it is automated. It will now keep happening on its own. I am not doing anything. See, my mouse is here. Not doing anything. It will now just be automatic and it will keep on happening on its own. Cool. Okay? Nothing for us to do. It will just keep happening. Perfect. Now we have seen an animation. We have seen a user interacted animation. We have also seen a code induced automatic animation. Right? Code induced automatic animation. It is 4:10. I think we have time till 5 o'clock, right?
5:30.
5:30. Perfect. Cool. Now we'll move on to mostly move on to list views, API calls, etc. So till this point, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I know that this was too much. I mean, this is too much of code, too much of new things at one go. But I just want to, as I said earlier, right? I just want to show you the possibilities, some basic possibilities, what is possible using Flutter, right? And then it is up to you to take it to whatever level you want. You can grow your skill to whatever level you want. Cool. Any questions up until this point? Anything that you're skeptical about?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So when does widget exactly die? Like say if you move, if you press a button and then it takes you to a different page. So is that when the widget dies or?
No, not really. In that case, what will happen is that this screen will still be alive. Okay. So we will see a real-time example of when a widget dies right now in the upcoming section that we have. So let's say, for example, in a list, if we have a list view, right? Right now we just had a column, है ना? But if we had a list view, so in that case, let's say that list has 2000 elements. Okay. So if you build all of those 2000 elements at the same time, then you are just flooding your phone with memory, right? You are just taking up too much of resources from your phone. We do not want that, right? Because
Yeah.
the user can't see 2000 elements at one point of time. Na? The user will only be able to see like 10, maximum 10 elements at one point of time, depending on your design. User might be able to see only 10 elements or 4 elements or 2 elements or 1 element maybe, right? But you are building all the 2000 elements at once, then that may just crash your app because that is just going to take too much of RAM, hai na?
Yeah.
So instead what we do is that we use a builder view, using which what we do is that as the user is scrolling, okay, as the user is scrolling through the list or the grid or whatever, the widget is built only when it needs to be, and if it goes out of the view, then it dies, it gets disposed of. Okay.
Okay.
So that was like a real-time example. We'll see one now when we make an API call and we get data and we show that data, right? So then at that moment we'll see.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? I mean, at the pace at which we are going, we'll probably finish by 5 o'clock. Then we'll only have like questions and chit chat till 5:30 if you want. Any questions, please?
People can even put the question in the chat box if you don't want that.
Yeah, whatever works. If you're more comfortable in sending them to the organizing team, you can do that as well. They'll just ask the questions. Please ask me questions, please. No questions so far? Should we just go move on? You want like 5 minutes ka break?
Ayush, do you want 5 minutes of break maybe? Because we've been speaking for the last 1.5 hours. So if you want to take a break,
हाँ,
we
मतलब
will.
I am to say taking a break. Okay, because you guys are not making me speak. मतलब you're not asking questions. Yeah, please ask questions. No, what is stopping you back? I mean, what is holding you back? Sorry, what has happened to my English? What is holding you back? I mean, why are you not asking questions? I'm not even a stranger person. I'm like I used to be in that same college in which most of you are. Like just just last year, just up until last year.
There's a question in the chat box.
Yes, देखता हूँ.
Want me to read?
Can you show how to create new screens and link them? Yes, we will see now. In the new section, we will see. Can you? Yep. We'll basically, what we'll be doing, I will just give you a brief overview as to what we'll be doing. So we'll be getting data from a public API. We'll be making a GET request. We'll be getting the data into the app. We'll be parsing them into data models. Then we'll be using those data models to show, in a list view sort of thing. Okay. And then as soon as you click on that list view, when you open that list view, it will open a new screen with the details. So it will have like an API call, a new screen, linking, navigator, everything involved in that, right? So we'll be seeing that. We'll be seeing that. Anyone else? Please ask me questions. Meanwhile, our sun is shining like in a weird way. I don't know why. I am probably we could have done with a better animation. We should have animated like the yellow part going outwards rather than the circle getting inwards. We'll do it maybe. I don't know. Yes, I will send you the code. I will share the code for this. Definitely. I will share the code. In fact, I'm not going to remove this as well. I'm just going to create a new screen, and in that screen, we'll do everything. We're not going to delete any code. I'll share. I'll share with the organizing team. They'll share with all of you. Yeah. In Flutter, the data from the API call will be displayed in JSON format. See, JSON format is JSON is the format in which data is transported. Okay, so like for example, if you want to transport some data from front end to back end or back end to front end, then it is like a courier format. Okay, so you have data in your JSON, you have data as a JSON string, and that makes it very easy for it to be transported from one place to another. But it won't be displayed in JSON format, right? It will be received in JSON format. We'll be decoding that JSON string. We'll be parsing it into like an object, a class object architecture as a model, and then using that model, we will be, showing it on the app. Any other questions? Please ask me questions. Any other questions? Any question at all? I have to given you freedom to ask me questions about placement also. Acha, I didn't establish my credibility for placements. Yeah, maybe that is why you think that I might not be able to answer questions. So I got placed in the third company that I applied for. It was ZS Associates. It was a super dream company, and after that, I was not allowed to sit in any other placements during August actually, not August, before August actually. I was placed in towards the end of July in ZS Associates. I had an internship plus full-time offer at ZS Associates, but I always had that startup wala thing in mind, so that is why they couldn't follow through with that placement offer. I left it and joined a startup. Anyways, that was it. Is there any difference between coding in VS Code and Android Studio? It is just up to personal preference. There is, I mean, the difference is only in the experience. So, for example, right, I personally prefer VS Code because I've been doing VS Code since I didn't have a Mac. I had a Windows laptop. It had 8 GB of RAM, and like it had like an old i5 processor, an old generation of i5 processor. And at one point of time, I just my requirements just outgrew that machine, right? I was not able to, manage huge projects. Like since I started getting full-time responsibilities or full-time jobs that I started doing with Flutter, then that machine was not able to support it. Because that machine was not able to support it, so I had to switch to a Mac. And us time pe when I was facing difficulty on coding on that machine, then I had switched to VS Code. Initially, I was an Android Studio / IntelliJ user, but then I switched to VS Code, and then I just stuck with VS Code. It's not like it's just a personal preference. VS Code, in fact, Android Studio is much more powerful than VS Code. So if you get a hang of Android Studio, then it's fine. But because VS Code is very lighter, right, and it's more performant, then that is why I just like using VS Code. It's up to you. It's a personal preference. Can you tell some of the good VS Code extensions you use for development and to increase productivity? Perfect. Very good question. I will just show you. So for Flutter, I have Flutter and Dart. Then I have this awesome Flutter snippets. Nash, he's one of our prominent Flutter community members. He had created this extension. This just gives you a lot of snippets in VS Code that you can use to quickly write code. So awesome Flutter snippets. Then I have this interesting thing called bracket pair colorizer. So you would have seen over here. See, it just, for example, if you open a bracket, and it will make the closing bracket as the same color, right? It will make the closing bracket as the same color. So that is how you know that you are closing the right bracket and all of that. So for nested programming like we do in Flutter, this is actually a lifesaver. Then I use clipboard history. So clipboard history is like if you copy something inside VS Code, so if you copy multiple things, and then instead of command V or control V, you can just do control shift V, and it will give you like an entire history of your clipboard. So you can paste things that you copied previously as well. Then I have the material theme that I do not use. I don't know why I have installed it. I have like some other Dart data class and Dart import vagera. Then I don't know why this Dracula theme is here. I don't use it. Then there is a GitHub pull requests and issues ka plugin that I use for my GitHub pull requests and reviews, etc. Then one is a very super amazing plugin. It's called Git Lens. This is an amazing plugin. I mean, once you started using Git and once you're working in a team environment, then Git Lens actually gives you a lot of visibility into who wrote which code, what does which code, what code do. I mean, when was it added? What are the changes for that particular line, etc., etc. Then, yeah, this is also a good one. Indent Rainbow. So you would have seen over here. See, the indents basically, as you are nesting your code, it just creates multiple colors for the scope. For example, the scope of this if statement is up until here, right? And then the else is up until here. So it will just create those like colors for those scopes, so that you know ki, which scope is up until what line. This is also helpful. Like common things. I just track my time using worker time, etc., etc. Not much, not many extensions, but yeah, whatever it is, they just sort make my life a lot easier. Any other questions? Please ask your questions. Please. No other questions? Acha, it's just 4:22 right now. I'll just wait 8 more minutes before starting with the API call and everything. Because I don't want to finish it just too soon. If you have any more questions, if you have any doubts, if you want to discuss anything, if you just want to chit chat, just unmute yourself and we can have a conversation. not among yourselves, like with me. I'm sorry, I need to specify. मुझे पता चला like that workshop is going on, you're talking amongst yourselves. Okay, I don't want an awkward silence for 8 minutes. So chalo, let's just proceed with it. Cool, perfect. Now we'll create a new screen, okay? So that whatever we have done on this screen is done, but I'll just create a new screen and we'll go through that screen, okay? I'm audible, right? We should proceed.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. So let's go to main.dart. Then over here right now we just have one screen, right? Home screen. Now we'll specify different routes. Okay. We'll see routes. What is the kind of data type that it needs? It needs string, a map of type string in widget builder. Okay, perfect. You would have come across list, sorry, array, map, etc. in Java, right? ये सब होता है, I think. In Java also you have map, you have array, you have array list, etc, etc. All of these things are there in Java also. So similarly, in basically I will just tell you quickly. So in Dart you have list, which is just like a normal array, okay, like normal array of type anything. So I can have 1, 2, 3, anything, and we have a map of which can be of type any key value pair. So basically this can be like I can have a map of type string, so a and int, so 1, then b, 2, c, 3. This is like a map, and the type is string int because the keys are of type string and the values are of type int. Okay, so these are the two data structures that we generally use inside Dart. Okay, now routes takes a map of type string widget builder. Okay, so I will specify, let's say, a route of type API screen. Okay, and then it will take a widget builder. Now we'll see what a widget builder actually is. Widget builder. What can a widget builder be? Widget builder, widget builder. Widget builder. Huh. So basically, widget builder is like that you have to write a function that builds a widget. Okay. So this is what I've written right now is a function that is going to return a widget. Okay. So let's just do thoda sa refactoring so that we are a bit, it's just getting too crowded in here. I'll create another file called homescreen.dart, put it inside, put this inside homescreen.dart, my home screen. Just import material because I know that it will be required. Timer के लिए import करना है. Right, so refactored it over here. Then I need to import my home screen from home screen file, otherwise it will throw an error. This is not required anymore. Now this is much cleaner because now we have moved the home screen widget into its own file. Okay. Then similarly, we'll create an API screen. Here also, we just import material.dart. Okay. Then inside over here, I will also again, create a stateful widget because I know that I will be needing a stateful widget API screen. I'll just remove this, not required. Create a scaffold, just like we did the previous time. Nothing out of the ordinary, not doing anything that is not been done before. And instead of just returning a scaffold over here, I'll just return API screen. Perfect. Okay, cool. Nothing that is wrong, nothing that is too strange. Then in home screen, we need to find a way to go to that API screen also. No? So in home screen, now I'll again create a button. Okay. I'll just create that only, the floating action button. Sorry. floating action button. Then inside it, I'll get a child, then a text widget, and it will say, take me to API screen. And on pressed, whenever you press that floating action button, same thing that we had already done, right? Same thing. This is new. Navigator dot push named. I will explain. See, this is so weird, na? ये क्या हो गया? This is like circle में इतनी सारी चीजें. So let's just remove this. Let's just put an icon. Oh, why? Why do I have to remove? I will not remove. I'll just move in an extended floating action button or something. Extended, huh? Then there will be like a label of widget text. Better, right? Much better. So what I've done is basically floating action button mein there is also a type of extended where you can have these kind of floating action buttons as well. Okay. So I think you can also have an icon. Yeah. See, go to API screen, much better, right? Icon थोड़ा सा ugly लग रहा है ना, but चलो it's fine. It will do for now. So go to API screen. Okay. Now if I click on this, what will happen? What should happen? It will take me to the new screen. If I press the back button, it will come back. I will just explain what just happened. So just like before, I created a floating action button. Okay. And on the press of that floating action button, I did something. Sorry. Sorry. I will answer these questions. Anyways, so yeah. Perfect. Navigator.push name. So basically what we've done is that in material app, now that you see over here, in material app in main.dart file, what I've done is that I have provided it a routes map, right? And right now I have just created one more route, which is apart from my home screen. I've just created one more route, that is /API_screen. Okay. And that basically for routes, you have to provide the key of type string. That is, you can identify it so that you can identify it via name. Okay. And you have to specify a widget that you want to build when someone wants to go to that route. Okay. If someone wants to go to that route or someone wants to open that screen, you need somewhere to take them, right? You have to build wherever you want to take them, right? So similarly, we have API screen for that. Okay. I have just created a simple API screen widget. I'll be adding the functionality to it right now, just like I created a home screen widget. Perfect. No rocket science, abhi tak. Then once I've specified a new route, from the home screen, I will on the press of this button, on the press of this go to API screen button, what we are doing is that we are calling the navigator. Okay. Navigator is what is helpful for us in Flutter to navigate across different screens. Okay. This is what helps us navigate to different screens. So right now what I want to do is that I want to push. Basically, a navigation is a stack, right? It is just like a stack. Have you read about stacks? I think you would have learned about stacks in data structures. You would have already gotten that DSA wala, paper. So in data structures, you would have learned that there is a data structure called a stack, okay, wherein you just keep adding one thing over the other thing, right? And when you pop, the latest entry gets popped from the stack, and whatever it's like. How do I say it? LIFO principle, last in, first out. You would have read about this in data structures. You've read about it, right?
Yeah.
Or do you want, I do not have to explain what a stack is, no? Okay, cool. So it's like a LIFO principle. Last in, first out. Whatever goes in last comes out the first. Okay. So that is how a navigation stack works. Whatever I push right now, it will come on top of this. And then when I pop, it will go out and this will still be there. The screen will still be there. Okay. So Navigator offers us a variety of functions. One of those functions is push named. Okay, so what I could have done is that if I didn't provide push named, if I used push, only push, right, then I could have just pushed a widget. This whatever widget builder I specified over here, na, I could have just put this inside push over here in this method, and it would have opened that screen. But that is generally not a good idea, generally not how we do it when while writing production code, the basically code that has to go into production. Okay, so we specify our routes, we specify our screens, and then we name them, and then we use those names to handle our routes. Okay, okay, makes sense. So we are using the navigator to push a screen of name API screen. Okay, so it will go to material app. It will ask, hey, material app, which is the screen that is named API screen. So material app will go to routes and say, okay, hey, I have this screen and I have this widget named API screen that corresponds to this name. So please render this widget, and it will hand over the widget, and that widget will get rendered. Okay, that is what we are doing right now. So go to API screen and our widget is rendered. It is a blank canvas like we talked about, right? Like I think 90 minutes ago. Okay. So over here again, I want an app bar, obviously. I mean, I may not have an app bar, but I just like an app bar, so I'm just putting it. Okay. Uh, let's name it API screen. Perfect. API screen. Then I want this title to be centered. I don't know why I just want it to be centered. So there is a parameter called center title true. So I will just put it so it will just center the title. You can see that automatically. I have not done anything, but automatically when you use the app bar, it automatically gives you this back arrow, right? Because it knows that there is a possibility for you to go back. It knows that there is a possibility that you can go back at this point of time because you are on a screen that is above another screen. Okay, so see, and you can disable it also. I mean, I can disable it, so automatically imply leading false if I do. So it will just disappear. But why do I want to remove it? It's okay. I want it over there. Okay. So this is the API screen. Okay. Now let's just quickly render a list view. Okay. So in the body, now I will just quickly write the code and then I will explain each and every word. Okay. Some other things just put title. Cool. So right now what I've created is that this is a never ending list. This is an infinite list view. And do you know, this is one of the first questions that I ask when I'm taking interviews. What I've created right now, this simple. This is a question that I ask in while taking technical interviews, and this is the first question, and most of the people are not able to figure it out. Do you know why? Because they know how list view works, they know how list view.builder works, but they don't realize this fact that you can create a list view without specifying an item count. So when I tell them ki, hey, just create a list view that is infinite, they can't do it because they always have this perception in mind that I have to specify a count. Right now, I've not specified a count. You see, I've just specified an item builder, and this is going to demonstrate, or this is going to control how I build out my elements. Okay, how I build out my elements. So right now, because I have not specified an item count or anything, it will just keep on building infinitely. So see, I can keep on scrolling. See, I've reached 630 and it will go on. There is no limit to it. It is an infinite list view. Anyways, now that I've shown off, so we'll come back to the problem at hand. Okay. So what if you have a list of list of some data model and you want to display it? Okay. What is a good way of displaying? So in order to display something in a list like format, you use something called list view. Okay. And then if you have like a sufficiently large list, then as I was explaining before the break, before the break that we took right now, we do not want a list to be completely built every time if all the elements, like for example right now I can only see 8 elements completely, 8.5 elements completely, right? So it makes sense to have like 10-12 elements built, but do you think that it makes sense to have 2000 elements built? Right now, so I have infinite elements. If all the elements were built, do you think I would still be on this call? Don't you think my phone would have crashed by now by trying to build infinite elements? Obviously, it would have crashed, but it is not crashing because we are using something called list view.builder. See, we are using something called list view.builder. And what this list view.builder is doing is that it is building the elements, the item builder that you have specified. Now, it is building the elements on the basis of your scroll position. So right now, I am on the initial scroll position, right? I am on the initial scroll position. Because I am on the initial scroll position, na, so that is why it knows that right now I can only see 0 to 10 elements, 0 to 9 elements maximum. So why does it need to build the 200th element? But if I scroll, as and when I scroll, then it knows ki, okay, now that I've reached this scroll position, this scroll position, this scroll position, then I should build these elements. So it will always on the go, it will keep on building these elements. And because of that, my app will not crash. Okay. So it will, uh, each of these could have been a widget. So I can just refactor this into a stateful widget of its own, and it will have an init state, a dispose method, all of it inside of itself. I can do that because everything in Flutter is a widget, right? I can have a stateful widget inside list.builder. We do that all the time at work, right? So we can do that. And this is where that life cycle comes in. So right now, these widgets would have gone through init state, did change dependencies and all of the life cycle methods. But when I do this, the 0th element, the first element up to the 10th element and more would have been disposed of because now they are no longer necessary. They are no longer required. But if I come back, they will be rebuilt again. Make sense? Cool. Well, obviously you didn't respond, but I'm just assuming that it makes sense. Okay. So now let's say that I had a list and I want to render that list. Abhi to I just created an infinite list view, but this is not realistic. Obviously you will have a list. This is good for a technical problem per se, but this is not.
I have a small doubt here.
Yes, please.
So say the 9th row, we insert an image that will span like maybe 3/4 of the screen. So now we can see part of the 9th row, that is, we can see the top part of the 9th row. but
Yeah.
they are not able to see anything else. So will that 9th row's content be built, or will
Yeah,
it
it
be
will
in
be
the
built.
so
Then it will be built. If you are able to see some part of it now, that means it is built. That is why you are able to see it.
no, what of the content inside the row, that is the
Yeah,
image?
it will be built. It will be built.
Okay.
It will be built. Basically, if it is any part of it is inside the viewport or near the viewport, like for example, what are the terminal? A second. What is the viewport? Whatever you are able to see on the screen is called the viewport. Okay. Then these are the terminal points of the viewport. The bottom over here and the top over here, right? Now, inside this viewport, if your widget is very near to the terminal points of the viewport or is inside the viewport, it will be built, because there is a possibility now that you can immediately come to that element. I can go to the ninth element just like that, right? Very, very quickly. So it has to be built and ready so that, if you go over there, then it can be consumed properly. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Thank you. That was a good question. So I have like something called data list. Okay. Like I'm just generating a list for now. I will be making the API call in a bit. Now we have only 20 elements. Okay. Because now we specified the item count to match the length of our list. Okay. Now what we'll do is that we know that we have a list. So we'll access the item in the list. So let's say I know that it is a string item. So I'll just do string data is equal to data list, and I will access the index element. So whatever it is, and that data I will just print over here along with the index. See, so I had generated a list of 20 elements that had, let's just do index plus one now. We'll make it look beautiful. Sorry. Yeah, much better. So I have generated a list of 20 elements that all have the elements A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. Okay. And then I'm accessing those elements from the list and I'm displaying them along with their index. Okay. This is right now a locally generated list. We have specified this, we have hard coded this, but let's make it dynamic now. Okay. We'll make use of some public API. So public API, JSON placeholder. So do you know what an API is? Do you have any idea what an API is? Anyone? Any idea what an API is? What a REST API is? Anyone? Anyone? Any single person?
Like it brings the data without refreshing the whole page.
No, not necessarily. That refreshing or not refreshing is up to you on the front end. API, the full form. Acha, what is the full form of API?
Application program interface.
Yes. And what does that mean?
So basically, like API, you just give an instruction and it will fetch from a database based on that instruction.
Cool. So let us try to understand the term. Okay. API, application program interface. Now it is generally associated with backend operations, but it is not so. API is, we also refer to our Flutter references as the Flutter API. API means application program interface. That is an interface to an application program. That application program can be anything, right? That application program can be anything. That application program might be Flutter itself. That application program might be your backend. That application program might be anything, right? Generally, we associate it with backend operations because that is where it comes from, the term comes from. But yeah, an API can be for an interface for any application program is called an API. Okay. We have Flutter API, we have a lot of these things. Okay. So just as the name suggests, if you have a backend and if you have some data in your backend, then an API is like an interface that helps you interact with your backend to fetch that data. Okay, so you have to create on your backend, you have to create a REST API or a GraphQL API, or there are like different types of APIs. Right now we are going to be using a REST API, but you have to, how it works is that you create an API and then that API has different endpoints. Okay, that API has different endpoints to which you can make a request call. So basically your app says, hello API, hi, how are you? Please, I'm requesting you. So there are like multiple branches, okay, multiple branches, multiple offices. Okay, so for example, let's say there is a company. Okay, there is a company, the company has multiple offices. One office deals with technical operations, one office deals with marketing operations, one office deals with sales operations. Now if you want to request some data regarding technical operations, you would not go to the office that looks after sales operations, right? You would go to the office that looks after technical operations, right? So if I want some data, then I need to know the endpoint from which to request that data. Okay, so I will know a RESTful API endpoint to which I will then make a API request. That request can be any kind in nature. Okay, it can be a get request, a post request, a put request, a delete request, whatever. Depending on the nature of the operation, the endpoint can have different request types. Okay, so right now we are going to be seeing a get request. Okay, so what a get request basically is that I go to an API endpoint, I say, hi API endpoint, hi, what's up? Is everything fine? Okay, everything is fine. Please give me this data. Then what that program interface will do is that it will go inside the application program to which that interface is associated, go into inside its office, fetch that data, come back with it and give it to me. Hey, you requested this data, here is the response to your request. It will give me that response and I will take that response from the backend from the backend system and transport it via internet and send it back to my app. Okay, so that is how an API and an API endpoint and a request and response works. Basically, you make a particular type of request and you get back a particular type of response. I think that's clear, right? That is how API endpoints and API work. Okay, so in when you are creating applications for a company or your projects, etc., you will be having your own APIs. You might not use APIs, you might use Firebase, etc. Okay, there are a lot of many possibilities, but generally, I mean, when you're working in a company, you would be using API. Okay, you would be using a REST API generally in most companies. Like we also use REST APIs. So in that case, what is to be done is that you have to know the URL to which you want to make that request, and you need to know the kind of response that you'll be expecting. Okay, so right now we are going to be using a public API that is there for testing, prototyping, for workshops like this one. Okay, so we will be making a request to one of these APIs, let's say the to-dos endpoint. So we have like multiple endpoints over here. We have like photos endpoint as well. Let's see photos endpoint, etc. Right? See, there is a photos endpoint. We should make a request to the photos endpoint, no? We'll see so many photos. We'll get so many photos. Wow, this is nice. We should do this instead. I was going to do to-dos, but why, why do you want to do to-dos? Let's do photos instead. Hannah, we should do photos, right? Please,
Yes,
someone
sir.
say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Cool. So we'll do photos. Okay. You can see that it has like fetched 5,000 photos. Hannah, let's see if there is a way to cut down on these. I don't want to fetch 5,000 photos at once. Should we just use it? Why? No problem. We can just use it. Take care. We'll just use 5,000 photos only. Okay. So this is the endpoint. You can see that, and get requests we make all the time. Any website that you open, all of these are get requests. Like when I open this website, let's say this is also get request that you are making to the to the file server, and it is giving you back the data. Okay. So now we know that this is our URL. Okay. But how are we going to make this request? So Flutter does not have anything built into it to make this API request. Okay. It used to be, then it was removed and it was made into a separate package called HTTP. Okay. Since we are going to be making an HTTP request, so might as well name the package HTTP, right? It's fine. You can just pick up the latest version. You can just go ahead and just do HTTP 0.13.3. I can't do that because I'm not on the null safe follow version. You would be on the null safe follow version. So I'm just going to have to check. I think this one should be non-null safe. So as now the time has come that we add a new dependency to our pubspec file. So I'll just write HTTP, provide a version. Let's hope that this gets added. It will automatically run flutter pubget. Done. It is added. Okay. Now I can use the HTTP package. So I've just gone to pubspec.yaml file. Inside dependencies, just where Cupertino icons was written, I've written HTTP. Okay. Now I can use the HTTP package now. I'll just stop this. 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. Now I can use the HTTP package in my project. Okay. So what I will do is that I will create. Now, generally, what you should tend to, right now, I'm not following any architecture or anything, but generally, what you should tend to do is that you should always separate out the data layer of your application from the UI layer, right? Because right now we are making very simple things. We are making extremely simple things, but in real life applications, things would not be this simple, right? So I think you should definitely go ahead and start researching about some code architectures and see what code architecture is good. Like for example, right now, which a modern code architecture that is generally used across the industry is MVVM. I don't know if you've heard about it. MVVM is model view model. Okay, so in that we basically divide our view and our model, that is the UI layer and the data layer, and there is a view model that acts as an interface between the UI and the data. Okay, I am just doing some simple bifurcation right now, not following any architecture, but in that, I mean, eventually once you start building apps, once you have like a good considerable size for your applications, then you would, I mean, need code architecture. So not build lib. API client.dart. I'm clearly audible, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll be creating a model. So photo response photo response dot. I can move it into, make a different folder. Okay, so I've just created a data folder inside lib right now. Inside the data, I have a models folder, and there is a API client folder. Okay, I will just tell you quickly what a model is right now. Okay, so we saw na, that in API client, let's just go step by step. Okay, let's just create a class API client. Then let's make a static method get request. I will explain everything. Please don't get intimidated by so many words. I need not do this much, but I just want to. I don't know why. Since I'm just doing this so that I can give you a brief glimpse of how, real development looks like. I will explain everything. So models, photo remote data source, API client. Okay, get request string URL. Okay. Then I will just import HTTP. This is something I can explain this right away. So basically what I've done right now is that I imported this file as an alias. Okay. I have provided an alias for this file import. So this whenever I have to use any functions or variables or whatever is offered inside this HTTP file, I will have to go through I will have to write it as HTTP dot and whatever. Okay. So because this has like very common names like get, post, etc., those can coincide with other method names, etc., that you might have in this file. So that is why we generally use an alias for HTTP. Anyways, coming back, so what we are going to be doing is making an HTTP get request, okay, to the URL. Whatever URL comes over here, we'll be making a HTTP get request. Okay. And this is of type static future map. I know too much nesting, too many new words. Please bear with me. I will explain everything. Let's go step by step again. I don't want to overwhelm. I have already, I think, but ठीक है, चलता है. This is like an API client. Then this can be photos. Also, just doing this so that I could have made this API request in a function in the site.widget itself. And just doing this so that you have a glimpse of how real development actually looks like. I just separated out the entire data layer. Let's create the model first. Class photo response model. Then what are the properties that will be there? So there will be album ID, int album ID, final int ID. Then what else? Title URL, thumbnail URL, final string title, final string thumbnail URL, final string URL. These are the different properties that are going to be in that those individual objects, right? These are here. Okay. So we have made these. I will explain what final is. Generated a constructor, named parameters, don't want them. as positional parameters. We could have them as positional parameters as well, but why? Then we'll make these required. Then this is like we have just created the model for these individual objects, but our response is going to be a list of these individual objects, right? So we'll create another class, photos response, and that will have just one parameter, list of type photo response model. It will be of type like photos or something. Photos, okay. Then I can just create a constructor for this. Let's make this also named, since you're making everything named. Okay, models are ready. Then we'll do photos remote data source dot dart. Inside over here, we'll create a function called photos response get photos. And what this will do is that this will just call the API client dot get request with the URL, and we need to specify the URL over here. Photos request. We'll explain everything, just reassuring again and again so that you don't run away by seeing so much of code. We have ample time. I think 26 minutes is more than enough for this. It will return map of type string dynamic data. Wait. Cool. Like we have a lot of code right now. Let's just make the API request for once at least and see what is happening. Okay. So, we'll also need form JSON and two JSON methods. So, two map तो नहीं चाहिए. If you want to know how I am doing this, I have an extension in my VS Code that is called Dart data class. You can just install that and you will be able to do this that I'm doing right now. Just right click, able to generate their JSON serialization, deserialization, serialization, whatever. Okay. Cool. We have this created. Let's get rid of this. Okay. I will explain. Let's just give a return blank statement, return null or something, so that you don't have to deal with it again. We'll just make the API call once and see if it is even working. What if the API call is not even working? What's the use of it, right? We want the API call to work, right? At least. Cool, perfect. We'll go to API screen.dart. On API screen.dart, what I want to do is that as soon as I hit init state, okay, As soon as we do init state, I want to make an API call. Okay, and I want to make an API call, and I want to yeah, I want to make that API call. So what I will do is that photos remote data source dot get array. What was it? Was it not a static method? Oh, no, can make it a static method, no? Photos remote data source dot get photos. Okay, this will just make the API call for now. Do nothing else. This just make the API call. Okay, let's just hope that it does. We've written too much code. Unhandled exception, missing static target. What did I do wrong? Cool. We have actually done the API call and we've got the response. Are you able to see? See. So, okay. Now I think it is time for me to walk through. So as soon as we open API screen now, are you guys asleep? Kya? Are you guys still listening to me? Hello,
Yeah.
hello.
Yes.
Please don't be asleep. Now is the fun part. I've been saying that for a while now, but yeah, I hope all of this was fun. Anyways, so basically, as soon as you open API screen, what is happening currently is this is being displayed from our hard coded value. But what is happening right now is that we are making an API call. Okay, so let me just quickly explain the structure to you. We have a constants folder in which we are maintaining our all the constant values. So right now, what is a constant value in our app? A constant value in our app is the API endpoint that we want to request. Okay, so we had gotten this from here, right? This was a public API endpoint that we had gotten, and so this is like matlab, you get it, right? This is like a public URL that we want to hit, and then we want to get that JSON response back. Okay, so we have made a constants folder. In that we have a URLs folder that will have all the constant URLs, so that if, like for example, right now we are using this URL in one place, right? What if we were using this URL in multiple places across multiple screens? Then if I just keep putting, uh, it as string, then I'll have, whenever I have to change it, I have to go in every single place and change it, right? So if I just make a constant variable like this, then I just need to change it in one place and it will automatically get changed in all the places, right? That is why I've done this. Now coming to our data layer basically has two components. Okay, so our feature currently is to fetch and display photographs, right? So it has one, a photos response.dart model, which basically is like it is like, a way to parse the response that is going to be given to us. Right now, whatever response that is being given to us, this is a JSON. This is JSON value, okay? But we won't be dealing with it directly. We will be parsing it into a model of our own, okay? And then using that model, we will be um, doing that, right? We will be using that model. We will be rendering it on the screen. So basically, as soon as you get the response, you convert it, you morph it into your own, right? You make it your own, and then you use stuff, okay? Then you use it inside the application. So what I've just done is I've created a class called photo response model. It has all the attributes that were present inside this object. So int album ID, int ID, string title, string thumbnail URL, string URL. Okay, and then I have made a constructor for that class in which all of these are required parameters. And I have made another constructor. This is a factory constructor. Basically, a factory constructor is like, you give it some data, and then from that data it will just like a factory produces something, so it will produce an object of that kind or an object of that type. Okay, so that is a factory constructor, basically, like in simple terms. So this is like the main constructor, and this is like a named constructor. Okay, so it says from map, right? So you can just create an object of type photo response model from the map. Okay, and that map you can just specify. Okay, now the response that we are going to get, it is not photo response model, right? It is of type a list of photo response model. It is going to be an array of photo response model. So that is why I've created, sorry, and that is why I've created another class called photos response. That just has one key called a list of photo response model. Perfect. Okay, make sense? Then I have another function called data source. So basically the idea is that whenever you are interacting, right, whenever you are interacting with data, then you should create a data source from where that data can be supplied. Right now you would ask me, hey, what is the difference between API client and photos remote data source? Aren't they the same thing? Yes, they are the same thing, but API client has to be independent of the use case. Basically, right now the use case was fetching photos. What if tomorrow the use case is to fetch albums? What if tomorrow the use case is to fetch users? Tomorrow the use case is to fetch profile data. All of those, these are GET requests, right? You would be using GET requests, but you would, I mean, if you just made it over here in API client itself, you would need to repeat code, right? Right now, what we've done is that we created a function that makes GET request to a URL for to whatever URL you say. You want to specify any URL. Right now, I'm specifying URL for photos, so it is fetching photos. If I want to specify URL for albums, it will fetch albums, right? So that is what it is doing. Also, whenever are you aware about async await operations? I will just quickly tell you. So this is not a synchronous operation since it is network dependent. If my internet speed was lower, then this API call would have taken much longer time, right? Because my API call was lower, my internet speed was less, so it would have taken much longer time. So it is an asynchronous task. Basically, your UI or your app has to wait for that task to get completed in order to fetch the data, right? So that is what we have done. So because I am going to get a data of type map string dynamic, right? Basically the key where the key is string and the value is dynamic, but I'm going to get it in the future. Okay, I'm going to get it in the future. I know that I'm going a bit fast, but these things are you will be able to understand these things much better as and when you create your own applications, and I will be sharing this code with you. Just try to go through the code once after this workshop as well, and you everything will suddenly make sense. You just have to sleep through it once. So right now I make the API call. Once the wait is complete, once the in the future, once I have the data, I'm just checking the status code of that response. So if you are aware about API endpoints, if you're not, just Google API status codes and learn about them. Basically, any endpoint, any backend system, whenever the request is successful, right? Whenever the request is successful, they always send a particular status code that might be in the range of 200 to 300. But if there is, let's say, a server error, then they will send a 500 status code. If there is a not found error, like for example, the URL that you are hitting, the system couldn't find it, right? So then it will give a 404 error, a 404 error, that whatever office you wanted to go to doesn't really exist, right? That is right. So that is why we're checking the status code. Okay, and right now I was just printing it out to show you that it is working. It is working right now. You can see that all of these are printed, right? Now the next step comes. So we have seen that the runtime type of this variable body was string because it is a JSON string. So what we'll do is that there is a function called JSON decode, and it will decode the JSON for us. Okay, it will decode the JSON for us. So we will do JSON decode, and as a result of that JSON decode, actually this won't be map string dynamic. We can make it, but it won't be. I should just put it dynamic because I have to make this GET request as agnostic as possible, as independent of all the use cases as possible, right? So I will just decode the JSON response that I got, that is over here. So acha, I didn't tell you about final, na? Yeah. So final is used whenever, basically if I do final fetch response, na, then I will get an error if I try to do this. Fetch response is equal to, hello. I can't do this. I can't do this. Because if I do this, then it defeats the purpose of final. Final means that once a variable has been initialized, you cannot edit its value. You cannot change its value. It's final, right? That is the meaning of final. So I'm just putting that final fetched response is equal to JSON decode, whatever it is. And I'm just going to return this, whatever it is. I don't know what this is. This API client is not supposed to know what this is. Whatever it is, I've just decoded the JSON and I'm going to return it. Okay. And if the status code was not 200, then I'm just going to return null, because there is no point in returning anything, because my API call could not complete, right? Also, this entire thing is prone to errors. There you can get a lot of errors. So you have to handle those exceptions. I think when you were learning Java, you would have learned exception handling as well, right? So you need to put this inside a try catch block, because this way, if this will throw an error, your app can crash. If this throws an error and this is an unhandled error, you do not handle this error, then your app will crash. Okay. Over here also, I'm just return. Yeah, I can just return null niche, and I will just print the error in case the error is there. I can just print it. In production applications, we log the error from here to a third-party service. We log the error so that we can get to know what are the errors that are coming in production, and we can solve them. Okay. So right now, the purpose of this API client ka function has been fulfilled. It has made the API request, it has got the response, checked the status code, and given back the response. Perfect. Now, the data over here, this is actually dynamic. Okay. But I know that it is going to be of type list map string dynamic, because I know I have seen the response. Now I know the contract. Basically, the kind of data that you are sending to the backend and the data that backend is sending to you is called a contract. It's an API contract between the front end and the backend. Okay, so I know that it is going to be of this type. So I'm just, I'm just doing it like this way because I know that it is going to be of this type. So I can just typecast it. I can, once I've received the data, I will just typecast it to, you would have also read about implicit typecasting, explicit typecasting, and all of those things. So I'm just going to do an explicit typecasting where I'm going to typecast this data because I know what is going to be the format of it as a list of type map string dynamic. Okay. Now it is in its very raw form. Okay. So I am going to be creating a widget, a model. Basically, I'm going to be preparing this data in a map. So map string dynamic response. This will be equal to photos and the list that we just got. So the list. Okay. And then I can just do this return photos response dot from map, and I can pass the response. Cool. I know. It's thoda heavy, but yeah. Let me just quickly render it and then I'll explain it again. Hello? Yeah, was someone saying something here?
No, maybe.
Hmm. We have this, we have this, we have this. Okay, perfect. We'll just have a small check. Oh, there's another. Wait a minute. Oh, it is of type list dynamic. I can't do this directly. Let's change this. I will explain you हम क्या कर रहे हैं. एक minute. या यहाँ पे बदलना होगा. Yep, have been solving the problem. So essentially, I mean, there was like a type error that I solved. So basically, what we did right now is that what you're seeing right now is that we have created like 5,000 of these. Yeah, I can just remove this color. No, it's really irritating. Cool. So basically, you see that we have what we've done over here is that okay. Let's go over it once more. We have like 5 minutes left, but okay. So as soon as you open the API screen, what will happen is that it will first call the init state method because life cycle mein pehla method, right? In the init state method, we are calling another method called fetch data. Okay, this fetch data in turn calls the photos remote data source to get the photos. Once and that photos remote data source then calls the API client. It gets the photos, it creates, it parses the photos into the model, etc. Right, and then once we have received those photos, right? So we have a state variable that is a list of photo response model called photos. Okay, I know I'm saying photos a lot, but that is what it is. So I have created a list of a variable over here in the screen itself that is photos. by default it is empty because we do not have any photos by on our own, right? In fact, we can show like a circular progress indicator. So next time I open this, you will see that in the center there would be a circular progress indicator. The API call is really fast, so you're not able to see it. Basically, what happens is that when once the widget is initialized, at that time the list of photos is empty. Okay, and then as soon as it is initialized, the widget is initialized, we fetch the response. We get the photos from the API call from via API client and remote data source, and then we once we have got that data, right, once we have got the photos, then we set the photos value inside our state variable, and once we do that in set state, then this automatically gets, converted to a list view. Before it was a circular progress indicator, but it automatically gets converted to a list view in which we are just displaying the image that we have received, as a response, and the title of that image. So whatever title we have received, I can also display maybe, the album ID or something. I think it's just the picture ID maybe. So 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and so on and so forth. We have like so many. You saw na that while we were, scrolling fast, the photos took some time to load because these are loading from the internet. So it takes some time for them to load, right? You can actually solve this using caching. You can actually cache ahead, and then, so that your user doesn't see any jumps while they are going through your API calls, going through your photos. Cool. So basically what we have done in this example is that we have used a public API. We have made a GET request to that public API. We have received a response in JSON format. We have parsed that response into our models, and we have, as a result of that API call, that process, we have then changed the state of our screen to display that that response in a visual manner. Okay, make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So, I think that was it from my side. We've covered, I think, a lot today. But I know that this last part was, a bit fast. But I am pretty sure that I'll be sharing the code with you, and I'm pretty sure that once you go through the code, once you have a look at it from your perspective, once it will definitely be, helpful. Are So I have stopped the screen sharing and I am done from my end. Now, your questions, I think one was already here. When did you start to use Flutter? How much time did it take for you to master? I started using Flutter in June/July of 2018, and it took me a while to master. Yeah, definitely. But I didn't give up on it. Once I started using Flutter, I was just continuously using Flutter again and again and again. For every project, I made tons of projects using Flutter. I found and did internships using Flutter. I found and did freelance gigs using Flutter, all of those things. And eventually, I got a good hold on it. I wouldn't say that I've mastered it till now as well, but I've got a good hold of it. Yeah. Any other questions? I don't think we have a lot of time because we've already run over our time. So, any questions? Also, acha, I didn't share the most important part. Like, I have to do some personal branding also, no? Let me just open that slide. Cool. So this that you see on the screen, this is a QR code that if you scan will take you to a Linktree page this QR code, if you scan, this will take you to a link tree page that has all the links that are required to connect with me after this workshop. So like you can get connect with me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on GitHub. All I think these three links are there. So if you would like to get connected with me after this workshop and like for the future, then please scan this QR code. It will take you to a link tree page. Okay. Now I'm done. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. So that was one good workshop, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and you showed your immense passion towards Flutter. I request all the participants to show your support by virtual collapse or something. Now we will share a link in the chat box, and please kindly fill it carefully because the name given in will be reflected in your certificates. Now we would like to hear a few words from our faculty coordinators. I request Mrs. Punita ma'am to share a few words.
Hi, good evening all. It was a very good session, game-changing mobile application development, Flutter workshop. Hope everyone, all the participants have enjoyed this session. I'd like to thank Mr. Ayush Kumar, one of the precious alumni. He used to be a one who shows interest in exploring new technologies. And we are proud that Ayush has given a full effort in sharing his knowledge to this reach of these juniors and to the participants from other colleges also. Thank you, Ayush, for spending your valuable time and also you're sharing your very fruitful knowledge. He has made very compact content to be shared in a very short span of time given to him. Thank you, Ayush. And also, I would like to thank our team, that is a DI Club student coordinators who have made a very good effort in bringing out the students even at in an online mode. That is bringing the participants in offline mode is different. Bringing the participants in online mode, that is in a weekend, they have made a full effort to reach the students and bring a very full useful session to them. And also, I would like to thank the participants for showing the interest in learning the new technologies. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for your words and thank you for the opportunity. It was a great experience for me.
Yes, Ayush. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words, ma'am. Now I request Srinivas to facilitate the speaker of the day.
Hi, my screen is visible, I suppose.
Yes, the screen is
Okay,
visible.
so yeah, I think we'll be sending this to you. A printed copy. So this is for your. This is a very small token for the time you spent here, for the the content that you shared. And thank you once again for all the for all the resource that you gave today.
Thank you so much. It means a
Just
lot.
like a small way to show our
It's a
gratitude.
very small token.
Even though it's not expressible by words, maybe our actions could talk. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Srinivas, and thank you, sir. Now I request our PRO head, Shrutilya, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Yeah. Actually, this is the quickest path to joy, and I, Shrutilaya, the PRO of DI Club, take immense pleasure in proposing the vote of thanks. First and foremost, let me start by acknowledging and thanking our speaker for the day, Ayush Shekhar, for all the efforts he put to make this hands-on session very informative and interactive, especially for taking time out of your hectic schedule to be here and enlightening us by sharing your knowledge and experience in Flutter application development. I think everyone has already got their time worth from the tips and tricks shared by him, right? Yeah. Next, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the faculty coordinators of our club, Mrs. Indumati ma'am and Mrs. Punita ma'am, for giving us a chance to conduct such a on-demand Flutter workshop. And then thank you, Srinivas, our technical lead, for coordinating and handling this whole session from the start to the end, from designing posters to inviting the speaker and distributing feedback forms. And then extending my gratitude to Divya, the club president, and all the office bearers and club bearers for your continuous support in making this wholesome session. And then last but not the least, thank you participants for gracing this event with your virtual presence and enthusiasm. Thank you all.
I would like to add one year. Akshat too was involved in promotion all those. So yeah, thank you, Akshat.
Yeah, thank you, Akshat.
So thank you for joining us today and making this beautiful session. Thank you, sir, for all the time you have given. And I would like for all the participants, the iClub members, and our guests to turn the video for a group photo.
Yeah, we'll just take a quick screenshot. So just turn on your videos for a second. I request everyone to turn on the cameras quick. We'll make it quick. Others, is it possible or will this?
Yeah, so the photo is taken, right? Okay. So I request again for all the participants to fill the form correctly, because the name will be shown in the certificate as you have filled. And I would like to offer for all the DI club members to stay back, and the participant can take the lead. Thank you.